This is the Misdirected Mark Podcast, a podcast about gaming, game mastering, and entertaining you, our listeners. We are explicit, you have been warned, and I'd like to thank Mike Willard for letting us use his music on our show. Now let's pick up those mics and get on with this thing.
Okay, Bob, you get in the back.
Is this okay?
Okay, now get a little bit closer.
Now?
No, just a little bit closer.
What are you doing with him?
But we're working on our positioning, you know? We have to get it right for the show, because being in the right position can make all the difference.
I mean, yes, I normally agree with you about this.
Yeah.
But tonight's show is about fictional positioning.
Wait.
And there's nothing physical about it.
You mean I can take my leg off my head and stop leaning up against the cat tree?
I guess with that I'll say welcome to the 376th episode of the Misdirected Mark Podcast, where we are talking about fictional positioning. Not actual positioning. Sorry
and
about
not frictional positioning.
Not frictional positioning.
Medic!
Oh.
No,
oh.
you, boy. I think you broke Bob.
Yeah.
Here, buddy. Sit down. Sit
Look,
down.
man, I swear yoga is good for you, right? Plus, I mean, you have a massage coming up soon, I imagine. With that, my name's Chris.
My name is Phil.
And I'm Old Man Logan.
Old Pain Logan.
Ow!
And once again, we did that opening thing where we misunderstand the show topic.
I mean, we do that
Whoa.
sometimes.
Classic.
Misdirected Mark.
Classic
It's
misdirected.
classic!
You know what the best part is that we can actually say classic Misdirected Mark.
Mhm.
Because
think
I just
that
get to come
qualifies.
here pretty much every week for like the past 8 years to talk to you guys.
Oh my God, has it been that many years?
It's been that many years.
A bit more years?
A bit more years.
Bit more years?
Bit more years.
Too many years? Bit more
Well,
years.
with that one thing, let's do our one thing. Bobo, Reno, what is your one thing?
Oh, yeah. So, I screwed up and I put two things down.
Oh boy.
That's
I
okay.
hate when I do that. So Friday night, Chris and I got together over here, and we started working on some more game design stuff.
I know I was waiting for you guys to
Yeah.
join the meeting.
It was like, yeah, we forgot there was a meeting because we didn't get notified by the Googles.
Man, my.
Sitting
Yeah.
there like an asshole on
Yeah.
Hangouts going,
Who
where
the hell
are,
is
these,
everybody?
where are these guys? They said they were coming.
Stupid guys. Yeah, so we worked on a new idea that I had. I had this really raw concept that I floated in front of Chris, and Chris took it and
It's
expanded
pretty
out on
cool
it. And
sounding.
it's a pretty cool
I heard
idea.
it over dinner. Like,
So
I kind of want to. I want you guys to go a little bit further, and then I
Yeah.
want to go play it.
I will talk more about that at the end during the conversation corner.
yes,
Yeah, there you go.
Yay! What about you, Phil? What's your one thing?
Me, so much writing this weekend. I did a thing where I kind of adjusted my schedule so that I do like all my business encoded business stuff during the week,
Mhm.
and have cleared my weekends for just writing, which is amazing because my to-do lists are so small now on the weekends.
Writing the loneliest art.
Yeah, but I did Pomodoro style with the timer. Have you ever done this?
Yes.
Yeah, so I did Pomodoro style, and it like really worked. I did 25 on, 5 off, because of what I wanted was something that fit into an hour schedule. And I got like 7,000 words written over the weekend, and that's game design, 7,000 words, not prose.
Mhm.
So that was a whole bunch of rules for Ditch Lilies on. I'm sorry, a whole bunch of rules for Turning Point, a little bit of Ditch Lilies on Saturday, and then came back and did a whole bunch of Ditch Lilies on Sunday.
Nice. And how many words was that?
No, that's what I'm saying. Like 7K total.
7,000 words.
A lot of. I mean,
All the words.
it was a lot. I
You
mean,
started doing the morning circus
7?
thing,
Oh.
and I'm still stuck in that morning circus
It's
thing.
the morning circus.
I mean, I called him Barbarino.
I know. I want the. You know what we need? We need Moe's bell to do the like ding 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 ding,
Just be really annoying and all that good
and
stuff.
like I need a horn.
No. No.
I mean, maybe for April Fools.
You know, Misdirected Mark morning circus.
I mean,
for
maybe
April
we
Fools.
could do that for the after show.
Oh,
The April Fools after show.
I'm gonna need to practice that. For sustaining that for any length of time is gonna be difficult.
Well, that's why. I mean,
Yeah,
we could probably do it for 15 minutes, right?
That's fine.
Yeah.
Hey, something cool happened yesterday on this Twitch channel. Which Twitch channel is this, Bob?
This would be twitch.tv/misdirectedmark.
By the way, if you're watching it, you can even see it, regardless of what station you're on.
And if you're on the old Misdirected Mark Twitch channel, you need to just move on over.
Keep moving on up, moving on up,
What was the thing
moving
that
on up.
happened yesterday?
Well, we premiered the station, this channel with the FM Gamers. Now, it was our first episode. There were some hiccups, like there normally are with the first of anything.
Sure.
We tried doing a test shot before that. I've already ordered new equipment, and we are already in the process of making things a lot better. So,
Nice.
in 2 weeks, on October 14th, which is the next episode, you will see all of that.
Awesome.
But we are playing a game called Spelljammed. It was really fun. It ended on a cliffhanger. You can watch the playback of that on the station or on the YouTube channel.
Nice. How long was the episode?
It's always 2 hours.
Okay.
We stream from 7 p.m. till 9 p.m. Eastern Time.
Oh, that's
That
nice.
is 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Majesty Standard Time.
Yes.
It is important to say that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is there anything else? Did you want to ask anything else? Do you need to know anything else? We're playing 5th edition D&D.
Well, I knew that, but we talked about that before.
There's some really good characters. It's Jesse. Jesse is playing Constable Spango. He is a gnome who thinks he's a halfling who is an inspector and investigator.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty
right
good.
up Jesse's alley, though.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
totally right up
mhm.
Jesse's alley. Alana Smith is playing a druid with an unpronounceable elven name, which we shortened to Clint. That was her choice.
Okay, that'll work.
And she is very impulsive, which is always fun. And then Jane is playing Mick Donald, who is a monk, identifies he, him, or they, them, and was a farmer, has an interesting backstory, and maybe might not be all as much human as we think McDonald is.
Uh-oh.
Secrets.
Secrets. But it ended with them on an alien spaceship, a very Spelljammer alien spaceship.
Oh, nice. So moving quickly.
So one of you's got to be a changeling assassin then.
Well, we'll see.
Or a GIF and polymorphed.
Oh, they found a dead GIF.
Oh, boy.
Hippopotamus man.
Don't
I love
look a
it.
dead GIF in the mouth.
Oh, that was
I'm out of here,
terrible.
folks. Good night.
That was terrible. Oh, I love it. I love it. High five. High five. I'll high five you for that.
Probably
Eiffel
should be
Tower.
a dead GIF.
That's bizarre
corpse.
because there's
Like a
nobody in
dead
between.
GIF corpse in the mouth.
Also,
What? No.
There
what
needed
the
to
heck
be
just
another
happened?
syllable in
I'm
there.
so confused.
Don't worry about it.
All right,
You're good.
I suppose we should move on. After that. Let's do some announcements.
First announcement is the Twitch channel.
Yep.
The Twitch channel.
One more time. Plug it.
Twitch.tv/misdirectedmark. And where can they go after the show is on Twitch to get this
Over to
episode?
YouTube.
Mhm.
YouTube.com/misdirectedmark.
That is, I believe, the shortened URL that will take you there.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Because it's a long string of letters and numbers, but I think Rob did some magic.
Yeah, well, Rob's very
Because
nice.
Clearly
Rob is
there's
the
some
chief.
URL
The
magic.
chief is the man.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's just plug a couple more show business things for the show, which is the forums.
Forums.misdirectedmark.com.
Yep.
There's actually a comment on there that Rob dropped in our Slack channel.
Oh, I didn't see that yet.
Yeah, which was from the forums. It was about, I forget what it was about. It was about stuff from last week.
Okay, cool.
So we should probably
So
check
we'll look
that
at
out.
that.
Maybe Bob, if you want to pull that up, you want to take a look at it. It's in the
Take a
Slack
look.
channel. You
Yeah.
can find it.
Next one is Misdirected Mark fans. We here on the show are taking the month of November off.
We're off.
So we're gonna pick some reruns. We're gonna pick some like best ofs, but my friends who watch live will probably hang out on Twitch or hang out on Mumble that night.
I mean, you can all do whatever you want.
We're taking a little downtime.
I'm
right?
taking some time off. Like,
I'll probably be playing some Minecraft, so I'll probably just be on the MMP Minecraft instance, just doing that. But anyway, so just to let people know, your podcast feed will contain rerun episodes, which we thank you for. And the reason we're taking November off is that November gets to be really messy with Metatopia. I always have a business trip in November, Thanksgiving, like the whole thing's one jumbled mess.
now, the one thing we do like to do, the reason we don't take December off, is because we enjoy spending Christmas time during the show.
Yep.
And we enjoyed doing our New Year's Eve extravaganza last year,
Which we are coming back
planning on
and
doing a second one.
Yep. So we will rock in your New Year's Eve.
Yes, we will rock in your New Year's Eve. I can't think of any better thing to do than
No, it's great. Have a few
Then
drinks.
It's an
and,
extravaganza.
we'll have a good time.
Mhm.
Okay, so cool. That's there's that.
That's just this show.
That's
We're
just the
still
show.
going to be doing the FM Gamers.
Right, and Pandas will still be doing its thing.
Yep.
Whatever. Okay. Can I do a couple Kickstarter announcements?
Absolutely.
Okay, I have 2, and then I think there's one that we didn't put on here.
There is, and there's one more announcement after that that's network related. But
Okay.
we'll do it at the end.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna plug Reclaimer, the Reclaimer Kickstarter.
Well, tell me about it.
Yeah,
What is the Reclaimer?
So Reclaimer is a
I'm
game
curious.
of climate crisis and eco-insurrection. I mean, I'm already on board, right? Like,
I mean, that's... So, yes, that is very much a Phil game. It's not really a me game.
so it's a sci-fi setting where rich people, oligarchs, and things like that have basically nearly shattered the environment, and the rich people are actually just planning to build big colony ships and leave, and just take as many resources as they can. And you play part of the eco-insurrection to basically save the planet, and if possible, stick it to the rich folks. So
That's very much a you game.
that's very much me. Written by Chad Walker on Twitter, Papa Shell, who's the author of Sigmata and Cryptomancer. I
don't know Cryptomancer.
like Chad quite a bit. Actually got a chance to hang out with Chad last week on Hangouts. Myself, Eli Kurtz, and Lowell Francis.
Uh-huh.
It was a very cool hour chat.
It's also a very cool group of people to chat
Very
with
cool
for
group
an hour.
of people, yeah. Some of the things I like about this Kickstarter. So this Kickstarter is eco-friendly. It is not producing a physical book.
What?
PDF only, but it's going to be like a souped-up, tricked-out PDF. And there's some, you can
I've
see
seen
some
souped-up, tricked-out PDF. So if this is a whole book that
Yeah.
does souped-up, tricked-out PDF, I am very curious.
Yeah, you can see some examples of the person who's going to be doing the PDF setup on the Kickstarter page. No stretch goals. I
I'm
find
down
this to
with
be
that.
I find this to be very bold. No stretch goals. Profit sharing for the team. So after they meet all their goals, they're splitting the profits among the whole production team.
I have to ask you one very important question.
Yeah.
Are they doing EPUB? You know who that was from.
Yeah, I know who they're doing. I don't know if they're doing EPUB, and I say that because there is a lot of sexy art in this, and I don't know if they're doing EPUB or not.
That's fair.
Let's see. There are backer levels in here that give money to different parts of the team. So if you want to support the artists, if you want to support the editors, the layout people, you can back tiers that will actually give extra money to those people, which I think is pretty cool.
I find that to be very strange, but also interesting in a very sort of like weird competitive way.
It is a really interesting, innovative idea.
I will say this. When I backed today, I looked at the backer numbers for all 3 of the groups and actually backed the one that had less than the other ones. So like when I looked at it, I was like, oh, there's X number here, Y number here. And I was like, oh, I'll just back this one so they get a little more money. The other thing, there's a thing at the bottom of it about union solidarity. So Chad's got some very strong feelings about Kickstarter's stance on unionization, but his point is that he's following the lead of the workers. So they have not called for a boycott. So he has not boycotted the campaign, but has said that if they call for a boycott, he will cancel this campaign immediately. No one will be charged.
Sure.
Which I think is right on. And I think is the right way to go, right? Like, I have my own issues about Kickstarter stance on unions, but you support the workers. So anyway, check it out on Kickstarter. It's doing pretty well, right, Bob? It's
Yes, it is actually at, if this stupid thing would stop moving, 7,442 out of 10,000 with 29 days to go.
That's gonna make it. It's fine.
So yeah.
So that's gonna kick no problem. If like I have Sigmata. Like, Sigmata's a gorgeous looking book, and the artwork that's up on the site for this is some really cool artwork. Like, this is going to be a good looking book. And the game sounds pretty, the setting sounds interesting, the situation sounds interesting, and the mechanics, which I looked at, this game is probably a little more traditional than I normally go, but actually doesn't look like looks like it's within the area of traditional that I am still comfortable with.
Sure, absolutely. Bob, can you do me a favor? Can you, in the after show, put a marking down for Drive-Thru RPG?
Absolutely.
I would like to talk about some of that stuff, just a little bit.
Yeah.
Nothing too in depth or anything like that. Just I have a couple of statements, but not until later.
Next
Here's
up.
a declarative statement that I'd like to make
Oh, boy.
about encoded designs.
Yeah.
I feel like when we create Turning Point, we should make an EPUB version.
Well, I don't think that'll be difficult to do.
Yeah. I feel like because Senda is one of the primary designers of this game.
Yeah, I feel like we'll probably get in trouble if we don't.
Yeah, we should make an EPUB version. So there you go. We're going to make an EPUB version of Turning Point.
Yeah,
Yes.
That's I have no problem with that. That's
All right.
That's
Tell me about Visigoths versus Malgoths.
Visigoths versus Malgoths. Tabletop role-playing game and dating sim about the conflicts and romances among the warriors who sacked ancient Rome and 20th century spooky teens, set in a shopping mall in Los Angeles suburb in 1996. There's a lot of bisexuals in this.
All right then.
I'm so confused by this.
Well, it goes
It's got to be time travel, right?
Well, it goes like this: a goth ritual gets out of hand and summons
Visigoths?
Visigoths to the mall.
I'm into it.
Yeah,
I would play this game.
yeah. So
See, this is my kind of whimsical, fun game.
yeah. No, this is absolutely.
And by fun, I mean my version of fun.
Yep.
Like, it's whimsy. That sounds
Oh
like
yeah,
whimsy
yeah.
everywhere.
Well, it's.
Yes.
I mean, for me, it borders on that silly ridiculous
Yep.
that is right up my alley.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to hear
Oh,
this
it's on-
game played,
Do it.
you can listen to it on She's a Super Geek.
And he nominated She's a Super Geek.
Yep. The creator, I believe, is Lucian Khan. They are excellent. They're a big member of the Gauntlet community, and they've been working on this game for a little while. Like these games start like they always do, right? Where somebody says something like, "I'm going to make a game about Visigoths versus Malgoths," and then it just takes off, right? Like,
Lucian actually played in a game of Sequence that I ran
oh yeah,
at Breakout
Cool.
last year.
oh that's awesome.
Really, really cool person.
This Kickstarter has a PDF, a soft cover, and a hardcover. And let me tell you that based on the prices, very reasonable prices on this Kickstarter.
Yeah, I got
for
some.
all three of those.
I have some thoughts about pricing of PDF and then print-on-demand stuff in the future. We'll talk about that later. But
Yeah, that's fine.
my pricing ideology is shifted into a different way.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're looking like if this has your fancy and you're like, ooh, I don't know, I've been backing a lot of Kickstarters. Look at the prices on this one. This one is not. This one's not going to hit you in the pocketbook too hard. And also, there's a section at the end. Lucian also has a thing about Kickstarter solidarity and talks about fair payment and everything for the team. So I think those things are important. I mean, right now I don't think you can post a Kickstarter without talking about the solidarity part, but also there's a whole section on fair payment for the team and things like that. And I think that's also important, right?
Topic
It's
later.
all very important.
Yeah. So anyway, two really cool Kickstarters.
Yeah,
that can
real quick, we'll
use your
throw the
support.
numbers out just to be
Give us the
equal
board
time for
numbers,
these.
Bob.
Visigoths versus Malgoths is currently at $8,534 out of 10,000
Nice.
with
Nice.
30 days
We'll
to
also
go. So
we'll also kick.
Yes. So our last announcement that I would like to make is that the BXP Bicons, that's our other show that is going to be on this channel. It will have premiered when you hear this in podcast land, but it hasn't premiered yet if you're watching us. So sometime on Sunday the 6th, I have no idea when. That's this month, October 6th. You can catch them playing live, or just watch the replay on twitch.tv/misdirectedmark, or go to the Misdirected Mark YouTube station, YouTube.
I love that. I
.com
love
slash
their
Misdirected Mark.
I love their name. Bicons.
The Bicons, it's
Love
good.
it.
it's awesome.
It's very, very good. So, I suppose we should go to our this is a garage? It's a garage, right?
It's Gosh. Push the buttons.
Okay, here, I'm pushing buttons.
Access granted.
I even got more than first time.
That's good. Because you got it 2 times in a row on the first time, the system's going to make you change your password.
Damn it. That means it's going to take forever the next time.
That's right. It's
Forever.
Forever.
Forever. If only I had a way to get a close-up shot of my mouth when I did that. Because then it's like the movie.
Uh-huh.
right.
Because that's what happened. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Anyways, that's Sandlot. Go watch it. It's a really great flick.
Yes.
All right, so tonight we're going to look at a mechanic that we are very fond of. It's called fictional positioning. This mechanic is found more in the mechanisms of indie games, but it finds its way in traditional games, especially these days.
Yeah, a lot more common than it used to be.
So let's dive into it and see how it works. Bill, tell me
Yep.
about it.
Fictional position.
I mean, who doesn't like frictional positioning? That's a different show.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
That's
Totally
an after
different
show
show.
topic.
Yeah, it is.
Would you like to put a
No.
pin in there for after show frictional positioning?
We're going to talk about our
Phil-
favorite frictional
Phil can
positions.
tell us all about his favorite frictional positions.
It's going to be a lot less. It's going to be a lot less exciting than you think.
Probably.
Yeah. All right. I mean, that's like literally the only time I would say something like that. Anyway, fictional positioning is a mechanic where the description of what a character is doing and how they are doing it within the narrative of the game influences the mechanics of the game. That
Okay.
make sense?
Yeah, it makes as much sense as anything does what we say.
Fair enough. Right, so there's some key parts to this.
There are. So all tabletop role-playing games have narrative and mechanical components. We can all agree upon that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, sure.
All right. Cool.
Sometimes we talk, sometimes we roll dice.
Uh-huh. Or engage with whatever the mechanisms are.
Absolutely.
Engage.
All right. The narrative is the fiction that we are generating through our descriptions and the resolution of various mechanics.
Right. Like, do I hit? Do I not hit? That kind of thing. Cool.
The mechanics are the rules, dice, all those mechanisms we tend to talk about that are used to resolve actions and outcomes and also give the folks playing the game the ability to create narrative pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Make sense?
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, it makes sense to me. I wrote it.
I actually wrote that last part. That's why
Did
I
you?
asked.
It made sense to me. I mean, here's the thing, right? There's this loop, right? We talk about this. We've talked about this in past shows, right? There's this loop where we are in the narrative talking about what's going on. People are saying what they're doing. And then we encounter something that causes a mechanism to be engaged, a skill check, a saving throw, whatever. That happens. And then the outcome of that
I want to
determines...
spend a point.
Yeah, spend a point, make a saving throw, whatever. And then that, in turn, brings about new fiction.
Correct.
Right? That cycle is basically how we play a game.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
In general.
In general. Right. Now, in some games, the narrative and the mechanics are not very tightly coupled. And what we mean by that is that you can what you describe in the narrative doesn't really cause the mechanics to change.
Mm-hmm. So there are other games, though, that the narrative is very tightly coupled to the mechanics. And what is said before the mechanics are engaged impacts what mechanics are engaged, in fact.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, I wanted to throw in there are games where a mechanic that you engage with lets you create elements which can give either mechanical benefits or fictional positioning.
Mm-hmm. We're going to break that open a little
We
bit.
should totally break that open.
Yep.
You want to tell me about a simple test?
Yeah, there's a simple test for this, right? If you want to, if you're wondering how tightly coupled the game you're playing is, you can kind of figure it out with this like simple little test, right?
Sure.
So if you can just say in the game, I move X squares, attack, I rolled a 16, and that actually does something in the game,
Mm-hmm.
then your narrative and mechanics aren't tightly coupled together.
No, you don't necessarily need your narrative to have your mechanics. You don't need your mechanics to have your narrative.
Exactly.
In fact, games that say the mechanics get out of the way, they're often these games.
Right. If you cannot effectively engage the rules without having to describe what you're doing, then they're more tightly coupled.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And those just represent two ends of a spectrum, right?
Yes.
So it's not like there's two bins here. There's like more like two poles and a spectrum in between.
Yeah, I would I wrote that part, so let me expound upon it a little bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
While there is a spectrum within that, those two bins are actually pretty as far as like our consciousness about games go, especially the games that we tend to talk about, they're actually pretty binny. Like,
you think they're pretty there's tighter edges on it?
I feel like there's probably tighter edges and a smaller gap between the two of them.
So two big peaks and a valley in between.
Yeah, and I feel like that valley is not as wow, the cat almost took out the podcast. Just throwing it out there. Podcat came in and almost took out the camera. Anyways, yeah, I feel like that's kind of how it goes. That's my feeling. I actually have no data to back that up. That is my opinion.
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree. I think games tend to fall primarily into one camp or another. I think there are some people kind of trying to find the middle ground on those.
Mm-hmm. So should we talk about some games that use them?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's talk about D&D 3X.
You know, I'm gonna actually let me, even though I have them colored, let me take this D&D because you take the other D&D.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
I'll let you do two in a row. All right, 3-5 with a battle mat, right? Lightly coupled. You can actually play out all of your combat by just moving your person around the grid and rolling dice.
Yeah, the fiction has like almost zero impact.
Right. Now, we're not saying that you don't play with the fiction, and we're not saying that the fiction isn't interesting, right?
Correct. That is not what we're talking about.
That is not what we're talking about, right? Both of those things are still true for D&D, but based on that like little test, I can go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Okay, cool. I'm in flanking position. Roll dice. Got a 17. Awesome. 8 points of damage.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my whole turn.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. It gets a little harder to do it if you don't have the grid. So if you don't have a battle mat out, then I do actually have to say a couple things before.
Sure, because we don't have mechanical positioning things on the mat.
Correct.
To guide us along with the mechanisms of play,
Right.
which have a lot to do with movement in that game.
Yes, because it is tactical combat,
Uh-huh.
and so where you are matters.
Absolutely.
Cool. Do 5.0.
So 5th edition D&D, it actually this is one of those games that kind of hits in the valley in some places, and actually it goes up and down the sides of the valley on both ends because of how you can play, because it's so modular.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't really need all the rules to play the game, so it's like a medium coupling game. One of the primary rules, aside from the idea of playing with theater of the mind, which they don't have great fantastic rules for like positioning, like actually in the middle of a fight for theater of the mind, but there's some good hacks out there and some good like high-end D&D designers that work in the books that have given like house rules for that stuff.
Right.
The primary mechanic that makes this game sort of a medium coupling game is the idea of advantage and disadvantage.
Mm-hmm.
Now, advantage and disadvantage is a mechanism that we talked about last week for making calls.
Yeah.
Like it's the primary mechanism in the game with which to make rulings.
Yep.
It's not the only one, but it is definitely the first one that you can easily go to utilize. It's medium coupled because that advantage disadvantage mechanic is also tied to a bunch of actual rules, like mechanisms in the game, like status effects and spells and where you're standing and certain like hiding rules and things like that. But you can also just use it to make rulings, being like, well, you're standing there and that person's standing there and they can't see you. You're technically, in my opinion, hidden or whatever. Or like, you did a favor for this person before, so as you're negotiating with them, they are coming to your aid and also arguing on your behalf, so you have advantage.
Yeah.
Or like, well, there's like 30 of them all pointing bows at you.
You are definitely at disadvantage.
You are definitely at disadvantage to make your dexterity saving throw to escape before you get shot.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think it's a really which is good, because we're going to talk about in the chat room somebody saying, Ange was saying that if a game doesn't have it, you can create it. And we'll get to that when we get to a break.
Well, the comment was good game masters often bring fictional positioning even in games that don't call for it.
Yeah, so this is a good way to do that.
This is a mechanic for. This is the thing that we're talking about with making calls. When certain games give you rules to do that, and it's a lot easier to make intra. You're
staying within the mechanics of the game.
It makes it a lot easier to make intra-mechanical rulings.
Yeah. But it's also a thing that players can do by talking about, and again, in this case, what players can do in fictional positioning about describing what they're doing in hopes to gain advantage.
It's true.
Yeah. All right, do Dungeon World.
Oh, I will. I guess I'll do Dungeon World.
Yeah, you
That's
will.
Fine. It's
your baby.
It's so tightly coupled. Like this, because you can't make a move without fictioning to make the move.
Really can't.
I just made up a word.
Fictioning.
Bob is cringing over there. Fictioning.
No,
it's totally a.
He's allowing it.
That's a verb.
I'll allow it.
You'll allow it. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sometimes you're allowed to stretch the boundaries.
The boundaries of it. Kind of like we stretched your leg earlier.
Yeah.
Is it okay now? Do you feel better?
No, I'm broken.
Oh, okay. We'll get you to a hospital later.
It's all your fault.
So like, the game is predicated on describing what you're doing. You can't actually be like, I want to hack and slash, because if you do, the game master is actually supposed to say, no, you tell me what you're doing to trigger hack and slash.
Exactly.
Because without that, it's actually really important too, because without that, it's really hard to decide what happens after the mechanics have been engaged.
Sometimes it's actually hard to decide which move.
It's very hard to decide which move if they don't give you a solid enough description. Sometimes you have to actually ask, like, what are you trying to get out of this?
Yeah.
Or if they describe so much that you're not sure which move they're actually intending to trigger.
Exactly. I mean, the one that I noted here in the notes, which I think is really common, is the difference between hack and slash and defend.
Mm-hmm.
Because somebody will be like, well, I run up in between the goblin and Bob.
Yeah, and
Yes.
sometimes they say, I'm going to intersperse myself between the goblin and bomb and swing at it.
Right, and then I'm like,
well, are you hack and slashing or are you defending? Because there's a move in defend where you can do damage.
yes. So the question becomes,
There's a part of defend where you can do damage.
right.
That's
So
what-
right. So the fictional positioning, which is what are you doing and what's your intent, actually determines which move you're going to use, and you can't actually figure out which move without it.
Mm-hmm. By the way, the exploration version, when you're doing exploration type stuff in Dungeons and Dragons, or even like conversational stuff in Dungeons and Dragons, utilizing that idea for triggering that or triggering approaches, like you would do in like Blades in the Dark style games, is really effective because you don't get a lot of good guidance for how to run that part of the game in D&D. Just throwing that out there for you folks that
If
like
you
to play
want to
games.
pick up a house,
Something that I think maybe can sometimes get lost when thinking about fictional positioning is that it's not all just about positioning. The intent, like you said, with
You're
the
right.
defend.
Yep.
You like I've got the positioning because I put myself between the two combatants, but why did I put myself there? What was my intent?
yeah.
what
What
we're
is
trying to
it?
get
What
out
is
of
it
it.
you actually want
So
from?
go
What
a
do you
little
want
deeper
from this?
sometimes if you're not 100% sure what's going on.
I mean, this happens in masks with sometimes with directly engage a threat and unleash your powers, because you're like, okay,
Yeah, those two
Like-
things are very
like,
different,
are you trying to hurt this person?
but they often overlap a lot.
a lot.
Yeah, that one's one of those gray areas.
And the other one is if a game, and especially Dungeon World has it, and a number of other PBTA games have it, if you have the generic, the In Harm's Way. Oh, that's the name of it from Hydra Hacker.
Yeah.
In Harm's Way.
Yeah.
What's it called in Dungeon World?
Defy danger.
Defy Danger. Right. In Harm's Way is the Hydra Hackers one.
Act under fire.
Right.
Act under
Well,
fire.
that one is important because that's the one that if after you have described what you did and your intent, if you can't find a place for it, like you either say yes, it happens, or you stick it in that bucket.
Yep.
For instance, that let's go kick back to that goblin. Like you're
Sure.
gonna try to get in between the goblin and the player.
Yep.
To me, if you're trying to hurt the goblin and the goblin's coming in to attack that person,
Yep.
I'm gonna be like, all right, roll Defy Danger first to see if you get there.
To get there. Sure.
And then I can be like, you get there first, make your hack and slash roll. You don't get there and you get there, but you get hit before you attack.
Right.
Or you don't get there in time. Like I have some options, and then you can swing and then make your hack and slash roll. But if it's defend, I could just be like, yeah, make a defend roll because that was the intent.
Now, the point of if you are a player in a PBTA game, then one of the onuses that's on you to be a good PBTA player is to describe your actions in a way that you meet the criteria for triggering your moves.
Yes.
So, if you are being a good PBTA player, your description, more often than not, should be so clear that the GM's like, oh, cool, roll hack and slash. And not have to, like, it's only when you get into those edge cases and things like that, but that's actually on you as a player to learn.
Yeah.
Cool.
I agree.
All right.
Tell me about Scum and Villainy.
Scum and Villainy, or any of the other Forged
in the dark.
Forged in the Dark games, are actually tightly coupled.
Do you think he actually like wrote that game in the dark? Like forged it in the darkness?
I don't think it's actually safe to forge anything in the dark.
I mean, I agree, but I feel like there's like light from the forge while you're
Tony
forging.
Stark built his in a cave.
Not in
with
the
a
dark.
box of scraps. It was kind of dark.
I'm not Tony Stark. There.
Apparently, John Harper is.
Yes. Anyway, Scum and Villainy, as well as any of the other Forged games, are also tightly coupled. Position and effect is highly influenced by the narrative.
Yeah.
Like the difference between whether something is desperate or not can often be like how you describe how you're doing.
Also based on the tone of your game.
Yeah, absolutely, and also based on the approach you take, because some approaches are just not optimal.
That's true.
Okay, but you do actually have to describe what you're doing to lead into it, because the GM needs some amount of information to base that on. Like, if I'm trying to pry open a door and I'm talking about doing it with my bare hands, versus talking about doing it like, I could say like, oh, I run down the hallway, the guards are chasing me, and I try to pry open the door with my bare hands, right?
Well, I'm like, that's limited and
Desperate.
right?
But if I'm like, oh, I run down the hallway. As I'm running through the machine shop, I grab a large wrench off of one of the tables, get to the door, and I use it I use it to bash into the doorknob in an attempt to wreck this lock so I can get in.
That's standard and limited. Not limited, standard and whatever the middle one is.
Risky.
Risky and standard. Sorry.
Risky and standard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So absolutely makes a difference. So you do need those. All right, cool. Let's talk about one of our favorite examples for games, a game that kind of straddles. I personally think, and hint if you listen to Pandas next week, we talk about this as well, but let's talk about Fate, which is a game that kind of interestingly straddles both indie and traditional games in a very interesting way.
Because it's got a bunch of traditional trappings, but yet it is very much...
It's got a lot of indie trappings,
It's got tons of indie trappings also. So the idea with Fate is that the mechanics are both narrative and mechanical at the same time. So you're getting kind of like both worlds. I'm not even going to say the best of both worlds because it's very confusing at times.
Fate definitely, we've talked about it before. There's definitely a learning curve, and years ago, because it is now years ago, we did a whole episode dedicated to aspects.
Yeah, I mean, we have a fairly good understanding of it now, but that's because we talked about it ad nauseum for like years.
And wrote a Fate game.
Yeah, that too.
I forget that sometimes. I'm like, oh yeah, we wrote a Fate game.
Yeah, I keep forgetting about that. I'm actually pretty proud of that magic system.
Yeah, I am. Me too.
So Fate, that's the thing about it, right? Like the aspects are both a mechanical thing and a narrative positioning thing at the same time.
Right, because I think, and here's where I think that the designers of Fate did a really good job. It could have been very easy to have just been like spend a Fate point and get a +2 or roll a die, or re-roll your dice, right? Which is exactly what spending a Fate point does when you trigger an aspect. But they also made you have to. It says it right in the rules. You have to justify your aspect.
Yep, you have to have the narrative positioning for the aspect to actually be triggered. To be invoked, I should say.
Exactly.
Also, to get more fate points, you need to have aspects invoked against you.
Yes. So it's really good. Like they made the narrative part mean something. Because, for instance, here's a game that has a very similar mechanic that doesn't have a narrative component attached to it, which is Bennies.
Correct. I was actually going to bring up the Benny myself. Like I was just at our game. We were having a discussion after for the FM gamers. We were having a discussion about how people get inspiration because we have a house rule where you can have up to 3.
Yeah. You
can use it for some different things than what is in the standard D&D book. And Alana Smith was like, "Yeah, I mean, I've gotten a Benny for making my game master laugh." I'm like, that is
not how this is.
Not how it works.
We're going to do it a little different.
Right. Like, the Benny can be gotten for whatever the game master decides.
I've gotten Bennies for shuffling fucking cards before.
And people get them for shuffling
cards. Or bringing
cards.
A mini to a game.
Yep.
Like
all kinds of things.
Correct. Now, that's not how it works in Fate.
No, it's not.
In Fate, you have to be in the narrative. You know what is another game? I'll mention a game really quick that has an interesting mechanism like that is Operators.
Okay.
Operators, you have a couple of special abilities in the game. Like, you might have a particular like jujitsu takedown or something that you can use. But they have a rule in the game that says you can't use those until you prime them in the narrative. So you have to have had in a previous scene talked about or demonstrated that ability once. And then once it's primed, you can then use it in the narrative. So you can't have it come out of nowhere. You have to like for instance, if driving is if my ability is driving, in an early scene I could talk about how on my time off I like to take my sports car and race along the Pacific coastline, with the car floored as I'm going through all these turns by the edge of cliffs and stuff like that.
And then next thing you can use car wizardry to drive from one skyscraper to another.
The game's a little more realistic than that.
Oh, but, sorry, I went Fast and Furious.
Right.
My bad.
But
or in an early scene in the game, you find me in the dojo practicing my spinning back kick against the heavy bag.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, this guy here, he takes the spinning back kick to the head.
Exactly. So that's also a neat way where basically through the narrative, I have to establish this ability before I'm allowed to use it mechanically.
The gentleman from Jiangyu Hustle, we're talking about fight scenes and the idea of momentum. Now, this isn't exactly that, but this is interesting because it's a different kind of thing. Like, you can't do a thing unless you've previously established that you can do a thing.
Yeah.
outside of a fight.
Which martial art movies are notorious for.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, there's one of my cheesiest favorites, and I'm going to get yelled at. PK Sullivan and others will yell, but Bloodsport goes to no ends to help establish those things in early parts of the movie so they can use them later.
What, the quivering palm strike?
The quivering palm strike, the split.
The split?
In fact, they do the split like 10 times before he uses it in the fight.
I mean, when you have dukes, you might as well do the split like 10 times.
Yeah. You have to admit, though, like, most Jean-Claude Van Damme movies are pretty awful, except for Lionheart, which is amazing and wonderful.
Lionheart is a tasty slice
oh my
of
God.
Buddha.
I love Lionheart.
I feel like Bloodsport's a really good movie.
I don't know if I would use good. I love Bloodsport quite a bit.
Bloodsport is fun and entertaining.
Bloodsport is a movie that entertains me.
What fight tournament movie is better than Bloodsport? Aside from maybe The Karate Kid. Tangent, everybody. We're tangenting here. Feel free to leave your comments either on the forum or in the chat room right now.
I feel like I'm going to need a few minutes to think through this. Like,
guess what? Put it in the after show or the conversation.
Yeah, I'm going to have to think about that. There's some. I'm trying to think, like No Retreat, No Surrender.
I've never seen that.
I think Bloodsport. I still think Bloodsport. Don't get me wrong. Bloodsport is my favorite Jean-Claude Van Damme movie next to Lionheart. And it's excellent. I just don't consider. I wouldn't say it was good. The story's kind of thin. The characters are cheesy. The fight scenes are fantastic. And ridiculous.
I feel like the fact that it's thin and cheesy makes it better.
Oh yeah,
because it puts more focus on the fight.
It does, and more importantly, it doesn't put any any acting stress on Van Damme.
Yeah,
like because when they do that later, that shit's gonna crack. Like it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even that scene when he's like blinded by the powder, like that's
terribly overacted.
Well, yeah, but because everything else is so cheesy, it's fine.
Oh yeah, it's fine. Don't get me wrong. Love Bloodsport.
Plus, once again, they have to do the thing at the beginning of the movie so that they can show them doing that thing at the end of the movie.
Plus, it has every other trope. It has the montage scene, right? So it has training montage. It has training montage. It has sleep with female to center chi. Like that's a trope, right? So he has to hook up, and that centers his chi.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
all right, let's move on.
So we just fall down that TV trope.
Why don't we break this down?
Break it down.
What we were talking about fictional positioning, not frictional positioning.
You don't want anything to break down during your frictional positioning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be bad.
Correct.
Don't forget to stretch.
Yeah. Okay. So overall, how does this mechanism actually work if we take it apart, like bit by bit?
Well, Phil, I'm glad that you asked.
Well, thank you.
The first thing that one must do is start with a narrative. You have to have some sort of story or conversation, Then a mechanic needs to be engaged. This would be like a skill check, an attack roll, spending a fate point, something.
Yeah, otherwise you're just having narrative.
Yeah, otherwise we're just talking.
Yeah, otherwise
we're just chatting. Then what happens?
So cool. So then once that happens, the GM has to review the immediate situation within the narrative. Now this is one of those things that happens in a split second in your head, right? But what's going on around the characters? What are the characters What are the characters doing? What is their intent? Do they have the right equipment for this? What level of preparedness are they for this undertaking?
Take into account everything.
Everything in the split second.
Yeah, hopefully you've just been doing that all along.
Yeah.
There's 1,000 ideas running through your head as you're doing this.
Yep.
And then at that point, the game master will determine if narrative positioning exists for this particular action. And there may not be enough narrative positioning to undertake that role. Maybe you're just flat out denied because you haven't done enough.
Yeah.
Maybe that happens when you're trying to trigger moves.
I mean, the 12 hit point dragon.
Uh-huh.
I run up and hit it with my sword.
Yeah, you totally hit it with your sword and it bounces off.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything.
We didn't engage a single mechanism there.
Boink,
I just told you a thing because you did not meet minimum threshold.
Exactly. Okay, so if there is sufficient positioning to continue, then the GM engages the mechanics to resolve the situation, right? So this may require that the GM evaluate the situation and assign modifiers, or they may have to determine which mechanic needs to be used, right? So which mechanic needs to be used is the, is this defend, is this hack and slash, that kind of thing.
At that point, we engage this mechanic, and we resolve it. And then we update the narrative based on the outcome, and then play continues.
Yeah, that's it right there. I mean, it happens really quickly.
Any variation of that situation that we just talked about works for pretty much everything.
Absolutely.
I'm having a hard time parsing anything that it doesn't necessarily work for. It can't be modified to accommodate.
Yeah, I'm with you. Cool.
So you want to talk about the play experience? Tell me about the play experience. What kind of play experience does a fictional positioning create, Phil?
Yep, so it has a few effects on the game. The first and most important is that it places mechanical value on the narrative. And the reason that's important is because ultimately we know that people play into the mechanics of the game.
Yes.
So if the narrative is important for the mechanical part, then people will play more into the narrative.
Mm-hmm. So we got 4 of these things, right?
Yep.
So number 2 is it increases player engagement, right? Because by making the talkie parts, we talkie at each other.
Yes.
Parts of the game matter more. Players have to both actively listen to what's going on as well as engage their imagination to contribute. Because if you're not paying attention, if you don't hear what's going on, you can't roll along when the story passes to you.
Yep.
Right. And I'll prove my point to this with one example. The 15th round of a 18th level Pathfinder combat. Because like by round 15, you have stopped using all the narrative. You're just rolling dice and moving your...
You may have.
I have. I totally have.
Hey, man,
by round 15.
There's that 0.1% of the population out there that just keeps narrating between their giant, ridiculous spells.
There's an outlier everywhere.
Yeah.
But what
it
happens...
does get more difficult the deeper in you get.
Exactly.
I just wanted to cover
all of our bases.
All
Thank
those
you.
bases.
So what I mean by this is that because you don't need narrative positioning, and you start to get tired in a long combat, like you're making your rolls and stuff, but because you don't need to engage the fiction, you actually can tune out a little. You can actually pull back from the game a little until your turn comes back around. Especially if you've already made like your decision, like, oh, cool, next turn I'm totally casting Fireball.
Yeah, because now I'm not playing for a while.
Right, like now, right, I gotta wait until it comes back around to me. Cool, I'm just gonna kick
And there's
back.
not as much of a reason to engage because it doesn't matter if you pay attention or not.
Right.
I mean, maybe it does.
Listen, it doesn't mean you can't not pay attention,
Yeah.
but what happens is, because there isn't this other piece that's like, hey, you have to know what's going on in the fiction, because when I have to know what's going on in the fiction, then what you do on your turn isn't represented on the grid.
Yeah.
So I really have to, I have to engage active listening to be like, oh, okay, you ran over
different
by
from
the...
when the cleric cast a bless spell and then it's like, look, you just got a +3 as long as you're standing in this area. Or I mean, that's not how bless works. I know.
If you're within 15 feet, right?
Whatever it is.
Now, one could argue that just because the wizard decided they were going to cast Fireball, that they don't have to pay attention to the fiction anymore, because by the time it gets around to them, the positioning on the battlefield could be such that they don't want to throw the Fireball where they thought they were going to throw the Fireball.
Yeah, but they don't have to listen for that, right? Because as soon as I'm ready to throw the Fireball and I look over at the grid, and I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, you can just take a look.
Yeah, like
Also,
put my Fireball over here.
Yeah, I'm also going to use my feat to exclude this person, and this person from the
well,
Fireball.
if you've got that, that's
right.
I'm going. I mean,
Why would you
cutter is?
Why would you not have?
He said 18th level. I assume that there's all kinds of insanity. There's all kinds of
bonkerness
and wildness that could exist in there.
Wackiness,
fun,
yes.
Wildness that could exist in this space.
Wild,
Okay.
and wacky stuff.
Third thing, narrative positioning fosters creativity, right? Players can receive mechanical rewards and advantages for their descriptions. You're going to work a little harder on them.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
because you're being rewarded for it.
Yeah, exactly. And we always play towards a reward.
We like
All right.
rewards.
So I'm just going to continue being ridiculous. Number 4.
Yes.
It does a really good job of reinforcing that shared narrative space, giving us that common vision of what's going on in the game. Like, that's a really powerful thing. I find that the most disagreements that occur in gaming are when we don't have shared narrative vision.
The most awesome example of failure of shared narrative space exists between Bob and I in a game of Palladium, where, to Bob's credit, Bob said that there was a staircase in this room, and Mike and I did not hear the word staircase at all. So we camped out. Like, we just were like, we're going to make up camp and go to sleep here.
Well, you guys are going to camp?
And then we get attacked, and we're like, where the fuck did we get attacked from? And Bob's like, the thing came down the stairs, and we're like,
what stairs?
Stairs. I'm like, I told you there were stairs.
Right.
I swear I said there were stairs.
You know,
I would have been like,
Narrator voice. He
Hey.
told them there were stairs.
hey everybody, just in case your players do something that you find to be completely ridiculous, it might be worth your time to reinforce the situation one more time.
Can you put in our notes shared narrative space? We should do a.
Have we not done a shared narrative
Pin
space
for
episode?
shared narrative space?
I'll go back and check. We have definitely talked about shared narrative space through various different episodes. I don't know if we've actually talked about GMing tips for creating, maintaining, fixing those kinds of that could be a really good workshop.
That's not bad. Not bad at all.
I mean, it's not next week's episode because next week's episode
Weapon speed.
Weapon speed.
Weapon speed.
Woohoo!
Can't wait. I have to do some work this week.
All right, listen. That's how fictional positioning works. We're gonna take a break, check in with the chat room, see if they have any questions or comments. But before we do that, somebody on this channel, somebody right here at this table, is going to talk about another show on the Misdirected Mark Network. Chris, who is talking about it?
You.
Okay, Down with D&D. Chris and the Mad Wizard, Sean Merwin, dish about everything D&D.
We do.
With a focus on the brand and the newest edition of the world's most popular tabletop RPG.
Undisputedly.
Is it really the newest edition? I mean, technically, yes, but it's not really new anymore.
It's
the
still
current edition?
It's still the newest edition of D&D.
I'm going to go with the current edition of D&D.
Is it not the newest edition of the world's most popular
It
role-playing
was
game?
new. Like, new implies that it arrived recently, but
No,
how old is it?
newest is the one that is the most
I'm going to say current.
current.
It is the most current.
I like current.
I mean, they're
New makes it sound. New
but
makes
they're
it sound like there's a.
synonyms, right?
New makes it sound like they're ready to launch 6.0.
You know what we are talking about, though? We're talking about the new book that just came out, Descent into Avernus.
Oh, there we go.
Baldur's Gate, Descent into Avernus.
Baldur's Gate.
By the way, it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of devils. There's a lot of deal making.
There you
Because
go.
it's all about the first level of hell.
Hell.
Yeah. And there's it's really good if you like stuff like that. Like, so I like the Fae, right?
Yeah,
like
sure.
I like the Fae make deals in like Dresden Files.
Mhm.
These are devils that just do the same thing. Plus, all the lore's there, and I really enjoy the lore of the Nine Hells. And there's a lot of that just baked right into what's going on here.
If you're a GM and you've always wanted to just send your players to hell,
This is a good
now's the
way to
chance
do it. Plus, there's like infernal hell machines that you can drive around, and they're like Mad Max cars.
What infernal hell machines?
Mm-hmm.
Now I feel like it's crossed into DCC territory.
Now I need to be like Ghost Rider. I need to, like,
You
a
could
flame.
be. You legitimately could be.
Yeah.
Don't cop out like that. If you're gonna be Ghost Rider, power a dead celestial.
Well,
and
I
ride
mean,
it
yeah.
around.
If you're gonna
Like,
be,
that's your ultimate Ghost Rider.
Wait. I got an idea. Then you just feel like that's not what he says in the comic. Wait a minute, I got an idea.
Yeah, and he just goes off and finds the dead celestial.
Yeah, and then you just start hearing the heavy metal music playing in the background.
And then they turn it into their base.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
Like they just make it into their new Avengers headquarters.
Well, that's terrifying.
yes.
Are they like the hell riding Avengers at that
No,
point?
they don't drive it around anymore. They just park it in a mountain, and they just it's just like
I don't know if that's better.
it's not. It's not. T'Challa like rewires the entire inside of it and
hey,
stuff.
come on.
Like,
When you're like, let's go to Avengers Mountain, that says something. I mean, that's like Avengers Mountain. What? All right.
I'm still not thinking that's the best idea. Although I suppose the Hulk can't smash anything too bad from there.
yeah, but it's the Hulk is Jennifer Walters' Hulk, not She-Hulk. Hulk, who's dating Thor.
I mean, as you do. I mean,
So she could break him.
Yeah.
Well, anyhow.
Wow.
All right,
Anyway,
then.
moving on.
That was some frictional
Chat room,
positioning right there.
Yes.
chat room, please.
Oh, the chat room is all caught up. Although when we went on that slight tangent about the best fighting tournament movie,
Rob
the
nailed
Dragon.
it.
Yeah.
Enter the Dragon.
Enter the Dragon.
So much so
Is that a
that,
fighting tournament movie?
Yeah,
Yes.
it is. Totally is. So much so
What's the one where it
that
just goes up levels? Is that the Enter the Dragon? Goes from floor to floor? Which one's that?
No.
That's not ringing any bells.
No, I know which one
It's
you're
the
talking
Bruce
about.
Lee movie. He fights
Yeah,
the basketball player, Will Chamberlain or whoever it is.
Okay,
Bill
yeah,
Jabbar.
it's not Enter the Dragon.
Okay.
That might
No.
be.
I've never seen Enter the Dragon.
Hang on.
Chris, we need to fix that. All right.
So first of all, Enter the Dragon, but what's the other one? Game of Death.
Game of Death.
Game of Death.
The Big Boss.
Oh, Game of Death is what I'm
I think it's
thinking
Game of Death.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
it's probably
anyway,
Game of Death.
Enter the Dragon has in it the same guy who plays Chung Li
Yep.
in Bloodsport.
Bolo Young.
Bolo Young. Although I don't think he's quite as big as he is in Bloodsport.
No.
He's big because that guy's always been big.
He's a monster.
But in
Bloodsport.
Bloodsport, he is utterly terrifying in size.
You'll watch Under the Dragon.
Yes, we need to fix that.
Oh my god, we could totally watch that as a. I would bring Dante
Misdirected
over
Mark
too.
movie night.
I'd bring Dante over because he hasn't watched it yet and he needs to watch it.
And Dante can come here, hang out, make some popcorn.
Yeah,
watch
he's
some-
all
watch some movies.
he's all like 14 and like although he thinks he's cooler than he is at 14.
Don't we all?
Which by
think
cooler
we're-
cooler is he likes to swear more.
Everybody at 14 thinks they're cooler than they actually are at 14.
Well,
That's
it's just that
common.
he's with me alone and he just like drops like he'll just drop swear words or something. And I'll be like, easy, buddy. Like I'm still your dad.
Yeah.
Like
Chill
easy
out.
on the F-bombs.
Chill
Like,
out. Like you don't need to do that. Do that with your friends.
He's
not
like,
with
it's cool, Dad. It's you and I. And I'm like,
He's like, no,
it's kind
no,
of
not.
it's kind of not cool.
It's cool when I say it's cool.
Right. It's cool when I drop.
That's
F-bomb.
right.
All right.
All right, back to the
anyway, I just want to go back to Ange's comment.
Okay.
That absolutely. So, what we talked about was games that have fictional positioning built in.
Mhm.
What Ange was talking about good game masters bring that into the game.
Sure.
It's absolutely a tool you can bring into a game
Uh-huh.
as part of your GMing style. Right? So, and I think it's good for all the same reasons that we talked about why fictional positioning is good. So,
Mhm.
and it's not hard to do, right?
I am of the opinion that I think it is a good tool to bring in to a game, but there are some people that don't want to play that way.
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
There are certainly people who derive their enjoyment of the game by moving their person around the grid.
I will tell them to go play Descent. I am definitely on Ange's side in this conversation. I have to play the devil's advocate thing because games should be for
it's
everybody.
fine. It's fine. Everybody has their own
Yeah.
route
Here,
to enjoyment.
my
in
hot
the
take is Ange's right. That's my hot take.
I'm
There's
not
the
even-
hot take. Ange's right.
I'm not even going to say I'm not even going to say it's a hot take. I think for the way that you like to run games, for the way that I like to run games, that it is a very effective piece.
I think not doing that is produces a lesser game.
now you're hot take.
That's my
I'm
hot take.
I'm gonna say that it is not my preference. I get very bored very quickly if we're just talking about numbers and moving people's.
I have a whole slew of games,
Man,
and
you
I
really,
have a person
you really
that I can direct you to a whole slew of games that will give you that experience in a much more balanced, competitive way.
yes.
But it's not role playing if it's a board
But
game.
so here's the thing, and I think we've talked about it before on the show. But how a game is written and how you run a game are two different things. They can be, right? Like, because you've said this before too. I've heard you say this with certain games where you're just like, yeah, but I'm going to run it the way I run a game,
Sure.
right? And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But there is a part of how we use the mechanics of the game versus what the mechanics of the game are.
Except, strangely enough, that thing that you just said is not something I've said for like a half a decade.
I know, but we've been here long enough that I remember when you used to say.
Yeah, that was half a decade ago.
Okay.
Because then we
It
got to
has
the
been a
point where
little
we're
while.
like, why are you making it harder on yourself? Just go play a game that actually does the thing that you want it to do.
I'm 100% with you, right? Like, I used to pride myself on, like, oh, I really like this game. I changed all of these things to make it work the way I wanted to, and then realized, like, hey, it might be better, like, to just go play another game.
Uh-huh. Like, for a long time, I loved playing Power by the Apocalypse games for the reason that, like, it's just a conversation. It really is. We're just going to talk, and
Sure.
a mechanic will do a thing, and that'll just prompt some more
Yeah.
conversation. But then, I got to the point where I'm like, I like this, but I also want some other stuff, and, like, well, I got D&D 5th edition, which does a lot of things that I like. Like, there's a lot of, like, bits to play with, and I do enjoy game to my game.
I'm
Like, I like mathematical bits and things to manipulate in my game.
technically playing two traditional games right now.
Uh-huh. I know you are. And also, like, I like me some Forged in the Dark stuff because it's also got some of that conversational stuff going on with it.
It definitely
But
does.
it's got a bunch of, like, it's got these phases of play.
Yep.
Yes.
So there's, like, other ways to play the game, so you're not just playing the game one way all the time.
Yeah, in fact, you can't actually play. You can't play Forged in the Dark games one way because you have to go through the cycle.
Yeah, you have to go. I mean, that's
Yeah.
that's how
if you want to play
That is
the
actually
game.
how you play
yeah,
the game.
because you can't get your stress back unless you go through
Yep.
the cycle.
Right.
I mean, once you get taken out of a job or a heist or whatever you want to call it, that form of play, like, you can't come back in until you go to downtime.
Yeah.
Like, so you have. I mean,
Yeah.
and if you just keep playing in that one place and you never get stress back, like, you're gonna eventually get taken out.
Yep.
It forces you to play that cycle.
Yeah.
So how a game is written and how a game is run you have the opportunity to run a game any way you want, right? There's no wrong, bad, fun. Unless you're hurting people, it's non-consensual, or you're being dangerous.
Well, that's not fun for everybody.
Correct.
That is because
that's just wrong.
Yeah, it's
not
just
wrong,
wrong.
bad, fun. But if I choose to have more fictional positioning in my D&D game, that's totally fine. That's a thing I can do if I want to.
Yeah.
The GM, please don't come and take your player's handbook away.
Yeah. And if everybody at the table's cool with it, you're all set.
Yeah, session 0. These are, session 0, set expectations, get consent, boom, keep moving.
Ange also said that she thinks good GMs can also know how to ease new or inexperienced with the mechanic players into narrative position.
Yeah,
Well,
I agree with that.
Well,
So.
if you listen to Pandas next week,
Yeah.
when we talk about how to get traditional players to play indie games and indie gamers to play traditional games, actually one of the things we do talk about is getting traditional players comfortable with narration.
There you go. Network plug.
Pandas
Because that's
talking
absolutely
games.
a thing, right? That's absolutely a thing that you have to help
Mind
somebody
games.
who's never done it before to develop that skill.
Mhm.
Because it is a skill. Being able to come up with a narration and being able to use the narration to your mechanical benefit is a skill that you learn. It is akin to knowing geometrically where to put a fireball
Absolutely.
on a battle map.
I'm living proof. I learned that skill.
You did?
Because for the longest time, I was very, very hesitant to offer up stuff because I wasn't sure of what to, I couldn't come up with stuff. I couldn't think of things on the fly.
I watched you all learn that skill.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's very much a thing. It's very much a thing that it's very much a thing that can be developed.
Mhm.
Cool. All right, you want to jump back in?
Jump.
Welcome back. We're going to continue talking about fictional positioning. Not frictional positioning, not actual positioning, but fictional positioning.
Every time I think you're done with that bit, you keep going back to it.
It'll be funny again at some point.
Yeah, it's good. It's okay.
So, we should ask a few questions about fictional positioning.
Yeah,
Phil, ask the first one, please.
Sure. What are techniques as players and GMs to leverage fictional positioning in play? What are your faves? What do you like?
So, as soon as somebody says something that's not enough, I'm like, please tell me what that looks like.
Sure.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, please tell me what it looks like.
It's one of my favorite questions concerning fictional positioning.
I like the. I will do the replay. So to make sure that I've got the fictional positioning down correctly, I will be like, all right, cool. Before you roll, so this is what I see, right? I see you, and you've got this big jug with this, flaming rag sticking out of the top of it, but it's teetering back and forth, and you're getting ready to throw it forward. Is that do I got it right?
Well, that's cute because it's not cute in the way that it's
No, it's
cute.
okay. It can be cute.
It's cute because you're basically giving the person a bunch of ideas if they didn't have any. It's good.
Well, and also in case I got it wrong,
Sure.
a quick reinforces.
No. I wasn't
right.
carrying it. I was getting ready to push it over.
Right. Be like, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that's gonna, especially in a PBTA game, that's gonna matter a whole lot on a 6-.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Right. That's gonna make a big whether you were pushing it or whether you had it on your shoulder actually will probably make a difference
Oh, yeah.
in some way.
Especially if you're a mean GM.
Not a mean GM, fun GM, fan of the players.
Yes.
As a player, I will engage with the players also that are in the middle of a thing. When they're saying they're doing X, I'm like, yeah, and I'm running around in the back doing X, so that they just to give more breadth to what's going on, and also to give more of a broader view of the scene.
Sure.
And when I say that stuff, though, it's short snippets.
Yeah.
If you are a player and you're inserting, it's like when you're struggling and fighting in Swords Without Master, they have to be short and poignant and help fill in and not be overbearing and alpha playery.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is one of those
They
times
should be
that-
dropping bits about themselves, but get in, get out.
Yeah.
Say a thing and then stop.
This is
Yeah.
one of those times when you can use your alpha playerness to be productive, where
Yeah.
you can just insert a snippet here and insert a snippet there because you are the color at that point.
Do you have them?
Yeah, I would say that I like to help out if somebody doesn't seem to be completely comfortable with working on the narrative positioning, or if they're not quite there, ask them are you going to go around here and do that, or
Yeah.
so you think you want to do this or whatever, like help kind of give some pushes in the right direction if they're having trouble.
Here's another thing. Like, a lot of people sometimes have a hard time asking for help. So I will, as a player, just ask the table for help once or twice to source the table myself to demonstrate the thing, because that makes it less uncomfortable for somebody else who might not be feeling who might be feeling like, well, I couldn't think of anything.
Somebody else has already asked, hey, anybody got any ideas? Then they're more apt to do it themselves.
One of the things I like to do is, if I don't have a specific thing to do in a PBTA game, is to narrate how I am potentially helping, so that if it
opens up for the aid roll.
Yeah, so if an aid roll is possible, I'm in there.
Yeah.
So I might just, he's doing that. Yeah, you know what? I'm actually running around behind that person, banging my sword on my shield.
A lot of times, too, if you're playing a game that uses that particular situation, or like you haven't acted or whatever, or a game that has some sort of like assistance rule, and there's like some way to get that, like in PBTA it's really easy, because if you roll a 9 or you roll a 6, like those are prime.
The cusp.
Those are prime moments to say, does anybody want to aid this person?
Yep.
And then when somebody says yes, I'm like, well, how do you do that?
Right. Which is why I try to like set that up if I'm playing. Like, if I don't have a thing, like if I'm watching a scene and I'm like, yeah, I don't really have a thing I want to do in this. Then I like look to see who else is doing something, and I'm like, all right, what would be helpful with them? Like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna help. Like, you know what? I'm gonna like help you while you're researching.
Yeah, it's actually a lot harder to pull off in games with action economies.
Yeah.
Because aiding somebody is usually some sort of action.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah. You can't just interrupt to do it. But if your game does have some sort of interrupt mechanic for aiding, it's great. Those are great moments to use them.
I think another good tip for, actually, you know what? I'll save it for problems, because it is actually a way to avoid a problem.
Well, now that you've mentioned that, Phil, let me just ask you this question. What kinds of problems arise when you're using fictional positioning?
So, too lengthy of a description. Like, if if I'm trying to set some fictional positioning and I take 5 minutes to get there, right? Like, I'm using up a whole lot of game time to get advantage, right? When I I'm creeping along the wall, right? But like then I crouch down, then I move from barrel to barrel. Like, are you sneaking?
Yeah, like, and that's where the tip there is like when somebody starts doing that,
right?
And it's going on for too long, you're like, wait,
shorten it, get to the point.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Zhang Yu Hustle gentleman from earlier, they actually had a really smart thing that they said about just in general storytelling. The non-important things should be short, and the very important things can be longer.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's cool, and you should describe how you're sneaking, but also that's the fictional positioning is the prelude to your mechanic. So do enough fictional positioning to make it interesting, and then let the GM get you to the mechanical resolution part. Because I've seen that happen where people get overly flourished.
It's punchy. You got to be punchy. Like this is
timing is key.
And again, that's a learned skill.
Yep.
Yeah, learn where to trade it back and forth, where the moments are to stretch a little bit, where the moments are to compress.
Because often what happens is,
and that's not to say that you can't have slow moments in your game.
Yeah.
Oh no,
you
absolutely
should have slow moments in your game.
You absolutely should,
because that's all about pacing
at the right moment.
Yeah.
But I think there's a thing where there's a pendulum thing where when players are first learning, they start with very little, right? Because they don't they're nervous about what to narrate or don't know how to narrate, and so they're like, I sneak, and then you're like, cool, but describe it to me, and be like, well, I just I sulk against the wall and slide up over to the person, and then you're like, perfect.
Yeah.
But then when they get into it, sometimes the pendulum tips the other way, and then they start this big flourish narration,
you
and it's
totally got it right.
It's like yes, but
I mean, the other one is too little description. Like you already mentioned that. Well, we got to get something.
Right.
It's good, but tighter next time.
Just
what are some other problems that arise from fictional positioning?
Man, I'm having trouble thinking of.
Another one is. So I don't want to say it's a problem if there isn't a lot of description going on. So if the GM gives you if I'm just you walk into a 10x10 room and there's a couple goblins fighting over some gold coins on the floor, your fictional positioning is greatly diminished unless you start asking to add in elements.
I suppose that
Well-
actually is plenty for me to go off of.
Well, it is up to a point.
Here's the
but
problem, because it's like there's some goblins. There's a 10 by 10 foot room. There's like 5 gold coins that they're fighting over.
Sure.
What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, you look. You can make a fictional position out of that. But if I tell you, like, this room was probably once a storeroom, and it's got boxes along one wall, some barrels, one tipped over, that kind of thing. And in the middle, there's 2 goblins fighting over some coins on the floor.
That's a little bit more stuff for people to do with.
Right,
Yeah.
because now it's like, oh, cool. Can I roll a barrel at the goblins?
Yeah.
Right, like.
I think if you go with the original description and it sounds like it's just goblins, coins, and an empty room,
Mhm.
then you may get people, when they're trying to use the fictional positioning to set up their move, they may introduce things that out of the blue that may not necessarily work with where the room is, or like they may go too far with, like, oh yeah, and so there's a chandelier that,
Not even. I mean, that could be a problem, but that doesn't make any sense inside of the dungeon unless you've established the chandeliers
Right.
already.
But if you have a mechanism that allows you to do that, like spend a fate point to make a declarative narrative statement, then you could be like,
Even those declarative narrative statements, I think we talked about this a few
Right.
episodes ago, still have to fit within the
Yeah.
world.
correct.
Making
But as a
sense,
GM, what I would do is set up the negotiation, right? Because you would be like, I'm spending this fate point. There's a chandelier in the room. I'd be like, all right, cool. Listen, there's probably not a chandelier in here. What is it you're going for? I'm looking for something to swing on so that I can kick both goblins aside and be like, cool. It's not a chandelier, but it's like a torch sconce in the ceiling, or it's a crag of rock that you think you can grab onto, and like, I know what you're going for.
Are we in a dungeon where
Right.
it's like a cavern? Then there's probably not a chandelier here. But if we're in like a manor house basement, maybe there's a chandelier in this room.
Right. And I think that gets to intent, right? So like when you say like there's a chandelier in here and it's not going to fit, then I'm like, what are you going for here? Right? So what are you going for? Because I want you to spend this point to get the thing that you want, because clearly you have some cool idea in mind, but let's make it fit inside the fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's actually a good point, right? Your fictional positioning has to fit inside the fiction.
Yeah,
Like you
especially
can't.
the established setting.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And the established description of the immediate location. Right. You can't. If I say this room is made of stone, you can't be like, cool, I'm gonna light one of the walls on fire.
It doesn't really work.
Like,
Probably not going to work.
Unless you throw some oil on it, then the wall will light on fire at least until
Fictional
the oil
positioning, my
burns out.
friend.
Yeah, I just fictionally positioned it. Sorry, the goblin example threw me because I was like, I want to know what the goblins are fighting about and how much gold they have, and then I want to talk to them.
yeah, which is totally fine, right? Because
Yeah.
that may be all you need for that encounter.
Yeah, which is, I mean, that's not the point of the actual conversation. So
Right.
the point is like there's not enough description to go off of.
Yeah. So if your game relies heavily on fictional positioning, either having a way for players to add pieces to the narrative, or you have to make sure that you have a reasonably descriptive environment, or be open to let players make suggestions.
Yeah, it goes. You're right. It goes 2 ways. You either have to be reasonably open for players to make suggestions to the environment, or you have to have enough there for them to do things with, or just go with what they're going with. Because there are players like Deanna who don't want to add that kind of crap to a game.
Sure.
Which, that's fine. Like, even I get to the point where I don't want to, like, certain games I play, I don't want to add stuff to the game. And that's
Right.
not crap, right?
I mean, I'll sometimes just ask if it's possible, like, hey, we're running through this machine shop. Is it possible there's a wrench on one of the tables?
Well, sure, you're asking.
Yeah.
Which is different from the game master asking somebody to add it.
Right. But then, like, the GM can be like, if it's minor, the GM could be like, oh, yeah, there's totally a wrench on the table. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Or the GM could be like, there could be a wrench on the table if you spent a Benny fate point, whatever.
Whatever.
Yeah. Oh, and be like, oh, okay, cool.
Because it makes sense for it to be there.
Yeah, I mean, the more probable it's going to be there, the less I'm going to push.
I actually have a rule for that in my D&D games, where if it's probable for it to be there or probable for you to have it, it's an inspiration. 1. If it's unprobable or unlikely,
Improbable.
then it's 2.
That's totally fair.
Because we house rolled it to have up to 3.
No, I think that's cool. Like why? Like, and I guess the question would be is then I would either ask or give the why. Like, is there a wrench on this table? No, it's the kitchen of the manor house. No, I'm gonna spend 2 inspiration. Oh, cool. It looks like somebody was doing some repairs and left a toolbox open. You run by and grab the wrench out of the toolbox.
Yeah.
Like,
solid comment. It's super annoying when you get a player who keeps trying to add to the scene in ways that go against the game that you're trying to run.
Yeah.
It is very annoying when that happens.
Yeah.
And that's why it's okay to say no.
Yeah, as Rob said, you want to try as the player to stick with the established setting, the established scene that's been set, and the tone of the game.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why you have that cats discussion early.
Yes. And that's why in games where, I try to say this diplomatically, sometimes people are trying to win games, right?
Yep.
So in games with fictional positioning, people may try to win the game by talking their way into more advantages.
By the way, I got a whole stack of games that you can play that are about winning the game.
Yep.
Right.
These are the genre of games that are generally not that. Just throwing it out there.
I mean, the idea is that fictional positioning, I think to me, the thing that I really like about fictional positioning is I like that if I describe something really cool, it helps me do a cool thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I like that it gives me some options, so it's not just I swing a sword.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can say more than that, and it depending on the game will have some effect on what it is. But yeah, if you're trying to win it doing that, that is definitely a problem.
So here's the thing, like GM Gerrymander said, sometimes GMs make this stuff too expensive because like when you ask that question, is there a wrench, and the GM asks you to spend a limited resource, which technically they're not limited resources. Bennies and fate points and things like that are not
Cyclical,
limited.
they're currencies.
They're currencies, they're cyclical. You can always get more of them.
Did we do a show on
But
currencies?
aside from that, the idea of the statement is that it's costing me something to get a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I think it really very much depends on the situation that you're in.
I like your rule of thumb on that.
If it like really makes sense for it to be there, I'll just say yeah, sure.
Yeah. If it's super probable that it's there.
If I have described that you are in a mechanic's auto shop,
right,
of course there's a wrench somewhere.
You are running through the wrench room.
Yeah. Like,
is there a wrench? Absolutely. Yeah.
Like that's a different.
Yeah. You're running through the armory. I'm gonna grab a
sword.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever.
Yes, you do.
Pick weapon.
Exactly.
I want to knock over the suit of chainmail that's hanging there. I'm like, yeah, absolutely.
Totally, absolutely.
It's there. Because there's no reason for it to not be there.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I actually think that's a really nice.
If I do the thing where I describe, you're running through the very picked over armory, that's different.
Yes.
That establishes a different set of fiction.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Now
I might qualify it, right? So like I might say, like somebody might say, I'm going to run through and grab a sword. Can I? And I'll be like, yes. It's very rusty. It looks very it doesn't look like it's been kept very well, and it's very rusty. And what that, like, for me, this is the narrative soft move of this sword is with you until you fail a roll, and then I'm breaking this thing.
Yeah, and then of course GM Gerrymander talked about how that some GMs are stingy with their things like bennies, and I'm like,
we gotta do the currency episode.
First off, we could talk how shitty of a game Savage Worlds is designed because of that idea right there.
Ooh, somebody's. Can I just
hot
check?
take?
Can I just check under your feet? Are you on my soapbox tonight?
Maybe because there is no established rules for how to get bennies, and there's way too important for how you get them.
Right, definitely put in currency. We're gonna do a whole. We're gonna do.
We've done an episode on
I know.
currency,
We may bring it back. But currency. So what you bring up as a sidebar here is actually really important. Currencies, because bennies are a currency. Currencies imply that things are acquired and spent. Right. So you have to acquire them at a rate that is somewhat matched with spending them, and that is different from a resource. So if I tell you that in game X you have for the entire session you have 3 points that you can spend, you're never going to get any more. And once you spend them, you don't get them back till the next game.
Well, then it's a limited resource.
That's a resource.
Yep.
Yeah.
A currency is a thing that comes in and comes out.
Yeah, there should be a flow.
Yeah.
There should be
and
a flow.
if there isn't a flow, right, if there isn't a flow or you mess with the flow, you are fundamentally messing with the game.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what, when Chris is on his soapbox about the frustration with bennies, is that the frustration with bennies is there aren't clear guidelines for how you get them. There are very clear guidelines on what to do with them.
And they're very powerful resources.
Yes.
Right, because if you want to see a tonal shift in a game, wait till players spend their last penny.
Because then they're very susceptible to being killed.
Right, they become very defensive. When you are flush with bennies, this is, all right, so Shintar flushes characters with bennies, and therefore everything looks like a wuxia film.
Which means that all the bad guys that you're fighting should be like wuxia villains.
Right, like you're just blowing bennies, like, I'm gonna jump from this castle on top of this horse. Okay, but you're gonna, like, whatever, I'm just gonna I'm spend benny.
By the way,
I made it.
Yeah, Ange mentioned that the new version encourages GMs to be more generous with bennies. I haven't read
More
today.
generous?
It's one thing to say be generous.
Was
with
there
them.
a generosity
I
problem?
would hope that there's some kind of codified, like, hey, if they do this, maybe give them.
Well,
if they
now
do
there
this.
are some rules because
Yeah.
if you play to your flaws, you get a benny.
Now?
But no, that's always been in the rules.
Has it?
Yeah, if you engage your flaw in the game, you get a benny. But
Hey, Tim Hannon.
here's the thing. All the other things, it doesn't say not to do those,
I
right?
know.
So
Yeah.
everybody's house ruled. Like when I've played games where and I've GM'd games where I've given players bennies for shuffling the backup deck of cards.
This is me shaking my head.
No, I'm with you, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm with you. And so that's the problem with currencies, is that Fate has a really good currency system because it's very well explained. Here's how you spend your Fate points, right? You spend your Fate points
Here's how you get your fate
here's how you get your Fate points.
And it's not like a freebie.
No,
When you
you
get a
have to
fate
do a
point-
thing.
Well, not just that, but when you do that thing, it's usually detrimental.
Yeah. Well, the rules are very careful, right? So the rules are, it complicates things. It doesn't thwart anything.
No, that's why I said detrimental.
Yes,
I didn't
but
say
you have to
thwart.
be, right. You have to be like, but there's for new GMs, it's actually a very important point is that when you engage a flaw, it's not that this action you were about to take is completely ruined. It's this action just got harder.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? Loud and boisterous, right? You're trying to talk to the queen to get like her permission to do something, and somebody's like, "I'm compelling loud and boisterous," right? So cool. Like now the difficulty of this situation has just gone up.
So we're definitely going to have to do it.
Yeah.
Currency time.
You know what would fix the Benny problem? It's the thing that fixes the inspiration problem, except there's not enough inspiration in the world of D&D. You just put a cap on how many you can have. Because then you can just keep playing towards getting them and you just cap out at some number.
And then you spend them and
Then you
fill back
spend
up.
them and then you can just keep playing to get them.
Yeah, so we'll do...
Anyways, it's
in the
one
future,
thing.
we'll definitely do currency or redo currency. We'll do currency reduct. Like, I think currencies are super fascinating in games, but I think that I think sometimes people confuse resource and currency.
Yes.
And they are
that is true.
And they are different.
Ange said, and most times I've played Fate, the GM isn't calling out those things to make Fate points flow. It is not completely on the Game Master.
It is not.
actually on the players to also make the Fate points come to them by self-compelling.
Self-compelling is absolutely a thing. In fact, if the GM is busy, distracted, doing the 8 other things that GMs do, a player can absolutely be like...
Yeah, you have way more agency to go out and get yourself some Fate points.
Oh, yeah, totally. Now that is more of a that's a little more of an advanced Fate player move, right? Like, and I try when I teach people Fate, I try to tell people I try to remind people of that. Like, I will tell them make sure if you want to self-compel, do that. But the other thing I do, a quick aside, I always keep a sheet at my
of all the things.
I have everybody's aspects.
This game is this episode is.
I know we got to rein back in.
Yeah,
but that's a thing because it is hard. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that when we talk about currencies.
All right, let's talk about the last question. Phil, what is the last question about frictional positioning?
Frictional positioning. Hacks and wish list items. I wish my frictional positioning maybe was not so frictional. No. So what are the hacks?
We want a little bit of friction. A little bit. There's some amount of friction that needs... wait a minute, I'm sorry. Fictional positioning. We're talking about fictional positioning.
What are the hacks and wish list items we have about fictional positioning?
We have several, I think.
I don't know if I'm trying to think. I never answered these questions in advance. I'm just kind of thinking of designs where I like fictional positioning and what to do with them.
The thing is like a lot of games have given me the hacks that I always used anyway.
Yeah.
Like codify a rule that allows me to make fictional positioning matter.
Yeah, I mean, I like the thing that you said, right? Like the thing where you have to spend, like, where you're spending some currency to get fictional positioning.
To create elements to give yourself fictional positioning. That's a good one. I always am a big fan of taking, in more traditional styled games, I use my finger quotes for that, where you have to narrate before you can even use the skill that you want to use. That way, when you fail the roll or succeed on the roll, we kind of know what it looks like.
You have something to work with.
Yeah, because that is very useful as far as like playing a game and telling a story together.
Yep.
Because like when somebody says, I want to sneak. Okay, what does that even mean in this particular situation? Yeah. Like, because you're like, well, we're in a bar. There's a lot of people around. There's somebody that's in the corner. And like the goal of this moment is to like go and maybe find some information from them. And then somebody's like, I want to sneak over there. I'm like, well, one, there's a ton of people. What are you doing? Like, what does it even look like to even allow you to make this roll? Like, because I would love to let you make this roll. That's usually the thing that I say too, because a lot of people think I'm trying to shut them down when they say stuff like that. But that's usually not the thing. And so that's
right. You just have to get it back into the narrative. Like, oh, I'm not sneaking like moving along the shadows. I'm sneaking like I look like everyone else in the room. Like I pace the barmaid so that like my lines of sight to me and the target are never clear.
Yeah.
You know, I
ducking in out of groups.
Exactly. I turn my back. I walk past the post.
See, now I'm like, cool. You can roll your sneak now because guess what? You triggered sneak.
Yeah.
You've used that approach, whatever you want to call it. Like those games have been really good about giving us hacks for other games to utilize stuff that has not been codified very well in the past. Because there's nothing in there's not a lot of stuff in those books that do that stuff for you.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing in the Star Wars guide, as far as I know, for Edge of the Empire and things like that that help with like stuff like that.
Right.
So that's a hack that I like.
Yeah, I think that's a really good
changing that from being like you can just use it to why don't you trigger it.
Yeah.
Yep. I think that's super helpful. I like that it also helps set up what it looks like before it happens, but it also gives you the if this goes wrong, like what it's going to look like when it fails.
That's a good.
Because I can be like, oh yeah, you go to move from the post, but the barmaid drops the drinks. And she bends over like to clean them up, and now you're standing exposed.
In full view,
And they see you at the table.
Yeah.
Like that's my. I like when fictional positioning can be used to redefine stakes.
Yep.
So, and this was the thing I learned, I think, back from Burning Wheel. Like you go to pick a lock, right? And the stakes aren't whether you pick the lock or not. It's whether the guards catch you picking the lock.
Yeah.
Right, like you're gonna pick this lock, but the difference is are you going to do it before they see you or not? Like so, sometimes fictional positioning can kind of lead to redefining stakes.
For example, a fake character with the aspect "no lock will stop me."
Yes.
Like, well, you're gonna pick this lock eventually. It just depends on how long it's gonna take.
Exactly, and what's the consequence for doing that for taking too long? Yeah.
Yeah. Because does that in Scum and Villainy. He trades position for effect
all the time.
Oh, it's so good that that's actually in the game, right?
Yeah.
It's so good that there's a thing in the game where when you say, "Well, this is limited," and you're like, "Yes."
When you say
but what
position, we say effect, position, effect,
right?
Position, effect.
So
when you say position, I say effect.
Position.
Effect.
Position.
Effect.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, but what's really cool about that, and that's actually probably a really good hack to talk about, like a mechanic, is that ability to trade position for effect is great when you don't have an approach that really fits this. So you're like, tell me how you're gonna stop the elevators from coming down when all you've got is wreck, right? And you're like, and you're in the control room, and you're like, yep. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to start randomly pulling wires out from the console. And you could be like, cool, that's kind of limited and whatever. And be like, but what if I'm willing to electrocute myself? Like, what if I go over to the big power box and pull some things out and be like, okay, like, I'll give you a standard effect now. Like,
you'll get standard effect, and this is totally desperate.
Yeah, this is exactly, and I think we know from the positioning what's going to happen if there's consequences to this roll.
Yep.
Get ready to take a wound.
Your hair is going to be standing on end. There's going to be smoke curling off your fingers.
Take some stress.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some hurt.
That's a thing that now that I'm thinking about it is a mechanic that I would like to see in more games is position for effect.
I mean, I actually use it all the time.
Right.
Just as a house rule.
Right. I mean that's a hack. That's a hack.
That's a narrative positioning
yeah,
hack.
like I think that's a really cool hack.
See, that's the problem. All the hacks that I would use in
Are
games
kind of things you already do.
They're things I picked up from other games.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is okay.
The
that's
hacks the hacks all exist as mechanics elsewhere that I just pull into other games.
I like that actually quite a bit. Oh, I wonder. Now that you say that, I'm wondering if I could do that with the Ditch Lilies game.
Probably.
Like you can trade your success. Like you can trade your you can trade position for effect, but even sixes have complications. I'll give you an extra die. I don't know. I'm just spitballing.
What you just talked about was the Devil's Bargain rule.
Yeah. Oh, actually, I've been listening to the AP for the one from the Gauntlet, the horror Trophy.
Yeah.
And that game has Devil's Bargain in it in the base mechanic. Like you can get an extra die.
I know. I'm aware.
Any player can offer up a Devil's Bargain.
Absolutely. I actually did offer up a Devil's Bargain.
Oh, Devil's Bargain's good. Let's put a devil.
That one's. I actually hate that mechanic.
I know, which is why we should totally talk about it.
It's mathematically not sound.
No, it's mathematically not sound in
Blades.
In Blades, but that's fine. I want to talk about it in a garage at some point.
You know when it's mathematically sound actually? When you have 0 or 1 die. Then it's fine.
Yeah.
Those are the times you should.
Well, you always have 1 die. Well, no, if you have 0 die, you have dice. You have 2 dice, the lowest one.
Yeah,
right?
but if you take a Devil's Bargain, you get to roll the one die.
Yeah.
Which is that's the time. It's actually the moment that Devil's Bargains are actually.
Yeah, mathematically, it doesn't actually pay to do the Devil's Bargain in too many other places.
Yeah, at 0 dice or at 1 die. Yep. Like those are the best places.
Yeah, because going from 1 die to 2 die has a probability.
It also makes sense narratively because those are the times that you are desperate. Yeah. Also.
So why wouldn't you take a Devil's Bargain?
Because I mean, you're probably going to fail anyway. At least it gives you a chance to.
You're going to do this, but I think you're going to break the containment on the reactor.
Well, not only are you, no, you're just going to break the containment on the reactor because that's what Devil's Bargains are.
I feel like Eric is a fan of the Devil's Bargain. Can you offer?
The thing with Eric is like I actually run a pretty not very terrifying Scum and Villainy game.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty low on like the pounding on the character. Like Eric's character is just constantly pounded. Like he pounds himself into the ground. And then Bob constantly stresses himself out by doing I'm a doctor, so I'm not a doctor.
I'm a doctor, not a
which lets you basically use doctor for almost
anything.
Yes.
Yeah. So
it's glorious.
Like those are like what we were talking about hacks, which is like spending health for a hack, spending your resource that is important for narrative position.
Absolutely.
Trading position for effect is a good one. I like the idea of like you generate a resource during a roll that has to be spent at that roll for something. That's the sequence rule.
Yeah.
Like to get more narrative position so that you have more narrative position going forward.
Yep.
Like I like that as a hack for a game. Like you roll high enough, it's like the crit in Blades in the Dark. Because usually if you crit, you do it plus something.
Yeah. Yeah, you get some extra bonus effect.
Whatever it might be, and that could be a narrative effect. That could be narrative position.
Yep.
There's all kinds of great narrative position hacks for that kind of stuff.
I agree.
Well, that's it, right?
Yeah, that's our take on fictional positioning. We're gonna check in with the chat room.
We've been talking forever.
And then go to the conversation corner.
Let's do that.
And next week we're coming back on weapon speed, and let me tell you.
Can I just hit the conversation corner now?
You can.
Is it gonna be slow? The weapon speed slow. My great sword.
It's not that it's slow to swing, right? Like you swing it fast. It's that it's going to take you a while before you can swing it again.
Well, it's because it takes you a long time to recover from the swing.
Yeah, it's not the swing. The swing's still fast.
The swing is actually like compared to like the dagger stabs. Like you go raw, and you gotta go raw. Like nobody could see me swinging across my body.
That is exactly,
back.
Folks. Weapon speed is all taken care of.
Well,
you go raw, and then you go raw.
That's the best podcast.
That's it.
Thing ever. It's a good thing this is also
Submit
a video
to
cast.
the Ennies.
There it is, right there.
Well, then it's
Clip
the
it and
conversation
submit that to the
corner.
Ennies.
Here we go. we're not talking about frictional. I mean, that is kind of that's like wind speed frictional positioning right there. The weapon speed.
Oh, man, you're stretching.
I did stretch a little bit on that one.
Right.
Anyways, what's in the chat room?
Yeah, we had a little bit more side conversation about issues with Fate. Jerry's anecdotal evidence of the things about Fate that don't work for him.
Anecdotal evidence is fine. Anecdotal evidence is usually not actually the truth of
well,
what's going on.
in his experience, more often than not, he's rolling against stuff that's like difficulties of higher than what he's got. So he's got to spend a resource in order to have a chance to make the roll, which means he's always working from a position of
look, I get
negative.
Which, all right, so here's the little thing. In Fate, based on the mechanics of the dice, your die roll averages to 0. So if you are good, if you are +4 at sword fighting, more often or not, you will get a +4. So yes, if something is extremely hard,
like a 6,
you have to spend fate points
you're
to
going
get
to
there.
have to spend a fate point.
And the purpose of that, again, is because it's a currency.
Usually more than one if it's a 6.
Right.
Even if it's a 4, the defense is a 4, you're probably going to have to spend a fate point.
To overcome it.
Right.
So the point is, you need to spend those points because the game wants you to compel yourself or to be compelled. The game wants that. That's part of the cycle of the game. You're not really, like, I don't want to say you're not really supposed to, but the perfect kind of Fate game is one in which the players are spending their fate points to achieve above their target number, and through the course of the story are receiving fate points through compels where their foibles, the things that will trip them up, come into play because that's fun. But if you take the second part of that away, or the GM doesn't utilize that strongly, then what happens is, and again, this is when currencies are broken, now you're annoyed because every time I need to make a roll, I'm spending fate points, but I don't have any fate points, right? Because now the currency's not cycling. Like, the thing about Fate is, if a game has a tone, right? Fate's got this thing where, like, if it can go wrong, it's gonna go wrong, right? Like you go to talk to the queen, and your companion has, like, you know, obnoxious belching as a troublesome aspect. Guess what's gonna happen? Because that's how, like, Fate goes, right? Fate's like, oh, the GM's like, I got a fate point for obnoxious belching, and you're like, hell yes, I'm belching in front of the queen, right? Like,
but should you have to spend a point on every roll you make?
No, absolutely not.
No, and
there should be stuff.
Look, like we were talking, like the idea is whatever. Really, you should be looking as if you're writing a game of Fate for a group that you know the group. You should look at their skill set and be like, well, these people can kind of do these things pretty well, like in the 3 and the 4s. Like, you should know what the 3 and 4s are. Those are the things that you should be challenging them at, like 2s and 3s if you want them to have a good challenge. Everything else should be kind of at 0s and 1s.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's 0s and 1s when they're like something you're going to tear through.
Yes.
2s and 3s when there's something they should pay a little attention to, and then
even more than a little attention.
A little more than, I mean, they might
the
have to,
1s and 2s. The really 2 is that number.
Right. There's a thing in the Fate Core book. I don't necessarily think it's in the accelerated book. There's a thing in the Fate Core book that talks about where to put difficulties.
No, there is. Now it's different for accelerated because your high score is 3 in accelerated.
Correct. You have to shift everything down.
Shift everything down. Like, it's whatever the high 2 scores are generally. You want to drop 2 below that, and that's kind of the average. So in accelerated, like 1 should be a common number that you're dealing with.
Yeah. So,
and then the dice randomize that stuff. So sometimes you get screwed, right? Like,
and sometimes you get super swingy.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get 4 pluses.
You pound something, right?
Yeah.
Because you roll that 4 pluses with your 3. That's a 7 to their -2.
And all of a sudden that's
like an 8 shift hit.
Yeah. And I mean, all of a sudden 8 shift hit is like a huge problem for the. So the thing is, there's 2 parts to this, right? One is the GM has to do their part to get the difficulties correctly.
Correct.
Because what they need to do in that part, what that part of the game does, is it establishes the consumption of fate points. So
it does.
If they get the difficulties wrong, they're consuming too many fate points. And even if you are compelling, you're consuming more than you're generating.
Yeah.
And really, there's like this kind of curve. It's a beat structure. The fate point distribution is a beat structure.
Yep.
And when they have more fate points is when you drop a harder thing on them.
Exactly.
So if you know
Make
you have
them
a
spend a
harder
few.
thing coming up, then you should be doing something to compel them.
Right.
And those are hints that something is coming.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you are a fate player, good fate players compel themselves early on.
Mm-hmm.
Build up your fate points.
Yeah.
Like, go ahead in. If you're playing a con game,
Yep.
by mid game, you should already have racked up 2 or 3 fate points through your compels.
2 or 3 more fate points.
Right,
if
more
you
than
can
your
swing
refresh.
Compel yourself in the easy,
Yes.
in the easy stuff.
Yep.
Well,
To
In the early stuff.
it is
in the early
on
stuff.
the game master
Yeah.
to make sure that the compels are never easy.
Right. But what you need to do is start self-compelling early.
Yeah.
Build up some fate points so that when you head into the finale, you have a few, because those are super important. And then the other thing, this is the other important piece. Fate points are not the only thing in the game that does that +2 in reroll. Invokes do,
Yep.
which means that create advantage is singly the most important mechanic in that game.
It absolutely is.
Because fate combats really come down to, and I think no better place that exemplified than in Rockalypse, is a whole bunch of people making advantages, and then at the right moment, one player rolls and cashes in like a fucking
ton of invokes.
table's
Yeah.
worth of
Yep.
invokes.
So that's the thing. Like, you have your own pool of fate points, and then create advantage allows you just to generate shit.
It lets you generate invokes, which are different than fate points.
They are,
but
but
they work
They
mechanically
work
the
the
same.
similar way.
And you just make them by rolling.
Uh-huh.
So
Well, by narratively positioning to take an action.
to
Yes.
take an action and making
then,
your roll.
And then defending the narrative position that you just created. Because just because there's 3 invokes on it doesn't mean that somebody can't take it out.
Yeah. And create. I every time I teach people Fate, like when the first time they play, I can't stress it enough to people. Like, look, if you don't know 100% what you're doing, go create advantages.
Uh-huh.
My God, just run around creating advantages. You will be like the most popular player in
Yeah,
Fate.
you never want a party of people that all they can do is attack. Because you want people that are buffers too, which creating advantage is essentially buffing in that game.
Right.
But
It's
here's
almost the more fun way to play.
here's the cool part. Almost every skill allows create advantage.
It does.
So I can use attack to create an advantage by
You
making a
can.
feint.
You can.
Like, I don't have to use a fancy skill. Like, if we're all fighters.
It's way easier for that feint to go away though than something else.
Yeah. I mean, a GM should be actively trying to pound down.
This is
all
the thing about this is why fate and narrative positioning are so important, because when you create an aspect that is a narrative position thing, that can go away by somebody attacking it in the narrative.
Yeah, if all of a sudden you douse the lights and somebody then casts a light spell,
That
your
your
darkness aspect
gone.
doesn't matter what's on it.
Yeah.
2 invokes,
Just gone.
Yep.
Could have 7 invokes on it by that point.
Right.
It's still just
Oh,
gone.
the other one that players often forget is that you don't have to, on a create advantage, you don't have to create a new advantage. You can create new invokes on an existing aspect on the table.
Look, there's somebody just dropped a thing in there about number of foes. Like, look,
Oh God, I turn all my foes into like one creature.
well, there there are groups like.
Yeah.
Like four muggers or whatever. Or 4
that's
thugs,
a creature.
That's a creature.
Yeah,
right?
that's 3
They
stress.
act once.
And that's on the GM.
That's
yeah.
I give them a +1, 3 stress boxes. Have a good time.
I cannot do anything about people
Bad
that don't
GMing?
understand how
Right.
how the game works.
I
Like,
will say this. We're a bit passionate about this because we have played a lot of Fate. We wrote a Fate game.
We've
whatever.
also had like 10 episodes on
we
about
have
Fate.
had about right. Here's the thing: GMing Fate does require a little bit of a learning curve,
It is. It's
and
not the
playing
easiest game
Fate
to learn.
requires a little bit of a learning curve.
Uh-huh.
There is a way to be a good Fate player, and the more like a good Fate player knows when to create advantages for the rest of their party.
Mhm.
They know how to stoke advantages that are in play.
Yep.
Like all of those things. Like there's stuff going on. So the point is, it's not the easiest game to run. So when it's not run well, it feels clunky.
Yeah, you're going to be behind the 8
But
ball.
it's also not the easiest game to play. And so players that like, if you're sitting down for the first time playing a game, like those games are always harder if you're sitting down at a con table you've never played before and you're kind of learning the game, than if you've played like 5 or 6 sessions in. Like 5 or 6 sessions in, you start to get really savvy about like making advantages and passing them off to people and things like that.
Yeah.
So-
That's just yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you.
There
Like,
there
all
are
right.
there are a lot of bad Fate GMs out there.
Because there's some nuance to that game that gets lost in the shuffle.
I also think a lot of the people that used to like to play Fate are like, there's a lot of stuff to manage that are going on here.
There's a lot of stuff.
And to get a similar kind of experience, you really can just go play a PBTA game.
PBTA games have with a lot less work.
And then the people who are like, well, it's Fate, so it's like indie, right? Like, I play traditional games. Like, I can go run this Fate game that's got all these traditional trappings to it.
Right.
And they never really kind of grasp like what they're supposed to be.
Right, because the narrative part becomes the part they stumble on.
Well, they get too caught up in the fact that they get too caught up in the mechanics and not the narrative part, which the narrative part's actually the game.
Yeah.
Like, there's mechanics, and then there's the narrative part, which is just as important to the game.
Yep.
By the way, I saw a tweet from Fred today, where Fred used a word I had not heard before, called Fate Condensed, that apparently might be the next generation after Fate Core.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
I was like, I'm kind of interested in what that might be.
Always curious to see what the.
Saw it on a tweet today. I don't know what it was, but my inference from it was like might be the next evolution.
Yeah. Like to be very clear about the whole Fate thing and why it's sort of frustrating to me, because I really like that game, and then I went and wrote a game that was better for me than it, called Sequence.
I like Sequence a
I
whole
was
lot.
playing Accelerated, and I'm like, this does not work for 7 people. How can I make a game that works for 7 people?
Yeah, because Fate's a heavier, like it's a more complex game, and yeah, when you ratchet up the number of players, it's a lot to manage.
It's too much to manage.
Yeah.
All right, we've probably beaten on the Fate thing enough.
Might have
for
used
this
up a lot of the
episode.
conversation corner too.
Yeah.
What time is it? It's like 9:50.
Except it's not called Sequence. That's correct. It's called the Order Number Engine. Thank you, Rob.
Yes.
Sorry. Well, it was then. I made it in the moment at that point. Like, we need a better game. Bob, tell me something.
So we did a jazz thing on Thursday.
Oh man, it was so much fun for your birthday.
I'm 40.
Yes.
I guess I don't give a shit anymore, which is why I'm having all these hot
40's
takes.
great, man.
Hot
40's
takes everywhere.
40's great. You don't have to give a shit about anything.
It's okay, you can tell me wrong. I don't care.
Look at all the shit that I no longer give. Yeah.
Behold
Jazz
the
Club,
field.
very cool. Very cool.
That was a cool little club downtown.
Nice venue.
Absolutely no parking, but whatever.
Yeah.
It was fine. Like it's super cool.
That's
little
what you
place.
took away from that?
No. I took away that it was a super cool place.
No parking.
The band was really interesting. What I really liked about the band was they were very knowledgeable about the music they were playing.
Yes.
So I not only got to hear cool music, but I actually got to hear how that particular style of hot jazz evolved.
Yeah.
Like that was really interesting to me.
Right.
Like I learned a thing and was entertained.
Yeah.
So now that's like my favorite.
Django Reinhardt was a righteous person.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Very interesting. And they were great. Like
This is a really good band.
Yep.
Really good band, and interesting because I didn't know hot jazz did not have a drummer.
Mhm.
That the second guitar basically
Well, they all are, essentially.
right, but like the second guitar kind of takes that snare.
Whoever the second guitar is.
But they just switch.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And sometimes the violin player does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually like jazz violin a lot. Like
I
when
do
we went
too.
when we saw
Scott Tixier.
Scott Tixier, like I had not encountered jazz violin before, and then I was like, because I remember we went and I was like, oh, interesting, violin, how does that work? And as soon as I heard it, I was like, oh, it works fucking fantastic.
Yeah.
like
I mean, violin works. Exceptional violin players work well in any kind of music.
yeah, it's just it creates
You ever-
a really cool sound.
Yeah. You
for
ever heard
jazz.
Lindsey
Oh, of
Sterling?
course.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
there you go. That's pop violin right there.
Yeah.
For you.
But jazz
Love it.
violin is definitely a thing that one I don't hear enough of,
Mhm.
and two when I hear it I'm always like, oh, it's great.
It's a very particular sound.
Yep.
I've never actually heard anything like Tixier until I heard Tixier on
Yeah.
jazz violin. Like, that is some exceptionally brilliant stuff.
It's frustrating because on Google Play you can't really find,
No.
like all you can find is some YouTube videos
It's true.
of Scott playing.
Yeah.
But yeah, jazz was awesome. That was your first time going to live jazz,
That
right?
was my first.
By the way,
yeah.
the club was the where we were sitting was like from where we are to the camera. That's where the band was.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
like,
was literally like 5 feet.
Sean could have strummed the guitar if he had leaned forward
Yeah.
enough. And,
Those are the
and
best
by
kind of jazz
and by
clubs.
band we mean where the rug on which the band was.
Yeah, they weren't on
played.
stage.
No, there was no
They were just-
stage, which
It's
was
a-
really cool. Like,
That's a jazz club for you.
I mean, there was one couple that was like literally sitting with the guitarist.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it was pretty cool. That lady was hilarious. She was like, I don't really like jazz, but this stuff's compelling. I'm like,
All right.
I get what you're saying, lady, but you just don't understand. It's fine.
It's all right.
What else has been going on?
Yeah.
How about
Me,
you, Phil?
I've played some more stuff. I've been continuing on with my Absolute Ender game still. Still going around. I got I think I told you this on Sunday. I got killed in the Nether.
Yep.
Because that pack has some really terrible monsters, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go into peaceful mode when I go in the Nether. This is Saturday night, and I don't need to be stressed out about I just need to go get some quartz and shit. I don't need to be fighting for my life. So I switched the game to peaceful. I went and got my stuff and switched it back to normal when I got out of the Nether back to the overworld. I was like, I'm fine with the normal threats and challenges of this world. This Nether's ridiculous.
Yep.
I don't need it. It's my Sunday recreation. I don't need to be stressed out.
I don't need to be stressed about this.
So the other thing is I started playing Dream Daddy.
What is Dream Daddy?
Dream Daddy's a daddy dating sim.
Really?
Yeah. Where your character, my character Kyle, because K name, Kyle is a
Sorry, all the K names.
Yeah, so he's a widower. He has an 18-year-old daughter, and now he's moved into this cul-de-sac with all these hot dads, and you go out on dates. So you go to Dad Book. You go to Dad Book, which has all these dads. You text them, and then you go out on dates. So I went on 2 dates so far. I went with Matt the barista to this concert, and that date went pretty well. And then I went on a date with my former college roommate, who used to be a party animal, but now he's this super together dad and fitness guy. And I got hit in the head with a softball. We were out in the park throwing the ball, and I got hit in the head, and he kissed me on the head. That was the.
Aww.
So that's
cute.
Yeah.
Very sweet.
So I have to pick the next dad I'm going to go out on a date with, or whether I'm just going to go on further dates, because I can go on up to 3 dates with with each dad.
So you're collecting your pool of husbandos.
Yeah.
By the way, for the people that don't know, that's waifus and husbandos.
Yeah, I don't particularly like some of the dads on the list. There's just one who's a little much too much into he's the bad boy, but he's into drinking, and he's he doesn't care about anything. And I'm I don't know.
You're not my type.
He's not my. I think Mr. Vega, the school teacher, who I think is actually my daughter's English teacher, so I'm a little nervous about that one.
You shouldn't be dating.
I shouldn't date my daughter's English teacher, right?
That's a terrible idea.
I know. I've been thinking. And then there's one. He's married, and I just ran into him at the art gallery, and I'm kind of what's the deal? Are we just friends?
Don't be a homewrecker.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm
stop homewrecking.
I'm are we just hanging out, or is this a date? I'm a little confused because we bumped into each other. We didn't go out on
a date. That's
no, that's right. We're just
each other.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So anyway, Dream Daddy is.
Don't date the married guy.
I'm trying not to.
Why is the married guy on Dad Book?
Yeah, why is the married guy on Dad?
That's not your problem. You just have to be ethical. That's all.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think I'm gonna go out on a date with him because it seems awkward.
Did he ask you out?
He hasn't, and so the way you have to you basically have to initiate, which seems.
Isn't this fascinating, everybody? I feel like this is terribly.
There'll be some updates.
There'll be totally.
Yeah, there're gonna be some updates on my.
Really, we just gotta get Phil to play it on the Twitch stream.
But it's on my iPad. If there's a way to.
Why is it on your iPad?
Because I don't stream any. I don't Steam anything. They have it on Steam, but I mean, it would be pretty hysterical. I probably could actually play it on Steam and just narrate through it.
I don't know if I have I just bought a converter for a camera for a GoPro. I don't think I can convert.
Is there an iPad converter?
I don't know. We'll look it up.
We'll have to look it up. That's hysterical. Anyway, Dream Daddy is it's really adorable. You have to actually build your character. They give you different bodies and different hair. And
did you make yourself?
I did. He's a little I got kind of huskier dad bod.
Tall, husky, got the goatee.
He's got a 5 o'clock shadow. I couldn't find it. They had beards. I didn't particularly like any of them. They were too bushy, so I gave him just a good 5 o'clock shadow.
That's fair.
Glasses, an earring. Yeah. So so Kyle's trying to navigate the dating scene while his daughter just got accepted to art school. So,
there you go.
A lot going on.
What I did 7 hours of statistical work on Saturday.
That new dice game, right?
Working on a new game. Me and Bob put together. So I'll do some more statistical work to get the rest of it done. Then I can start playtesting it with Bob.
I'm excited. The game sounds from the early description of it sounds really good.
It's a pulling cubes out of a bag to collect sets, but all the cubes have eventually have powers.
Yeah.
That you can utilize when you have them. So you can once per turn spend a cube to use its power, and it goes back in the bag. There's a different distribution for the dice that are in the bag, but There's also going to be a bunch of cards that have the powers of the dice on them that we shuffle up, and you deal out 6 every game. So the game changes every time you play.
Yep.
So you could have some games that have pretty wild powers going on, and some games that have like the one with the most cubes in the bag has like a not very impressive ability, but the one that has like 4 cubes in the bag has a very impressive ability. And of course, you're collecting sets. That's the idea. You have to collect a set, so it's really a choice. Do you use the cube that you have, or do you spend the cube that you have?
And it's a hidden set collection.
Hidden set collection, yeah.
Is there a reason why it's hidden?
Because if you know what somebody wants, because there's going to be powers that are potentially able to like take people's dice or take people's cubes away.
Oh, never mind. That was my answer.
In fact, there's going to be one of the powers is like reveal your card.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. Like, there needs to be a mechanical reason why it's hidden.
That amount of information is very, very impactful to the game.
Yeah, there's some screw your neighbor type stuff in this game. Like you can swap dice with another player.
Oh, good, because I know just a person who likes a screw you kind of game.
Me too. All right, let's go to the Patreon shoutouts. Let's do that. It's first of the month. I don't have quite it's the first of the month, so we don't quite have the new patron list. But it's time for the Royal Court.
Royal Court rundown.
If we get anybody new for the Royal Court, we'll mention them later. So Eileen Barnes, the Duchess of Pandas Talking Games. Andrew Dacey, the Warden of Whiskies. Andy Olson, the Duke of Dice. Brian Kurtz, the Royal Doctor of Physic. Christopher Gray, the Spy Master of MMP. Craig, the Lord of One Name. Donnie Harville, the Lord of the Slack Room. Eric Bonds, who has 2 names, 2 titles, I should say, the Duke of Gators and the Lord of the Beefness. GM Gerrymander, the Lord of the After Show. Jared Rasher, the Scribe of MMP. Jesse Edmond, the Royal Doctor. Jim Likes Games, the Royal Merchant. John C. LeMay, the Guard at the End of the World. I hope you're not too lonely out there at the end of the world. John Carney, the Court Necromancer, who I believe is playing Bob at Fantasy Football this week. That should be a fun game. We'll get an update on that later. Kevin Lovecraft, the Royal Beard, who was here earlier. Merrick Blackman, the Royal D&D Reviewer. Mike Dinos, the Inquisitor of Mark, and his dog Pretzel. Who helps him inquisit.
Yes, inquire.
Inquire, whatever. Yes. I mean, Inquisitors aren't very nice people, actually. But our Inquisitor
Mike
is probably very nice.
Yeah.
No one expects the Pretzel Inquisition.
That's right. P.K. Sullivan, the Queen's Royal Rocketeer. Richard Wyatt, Captain of the Royal Airship Beat. Rob Ebersado, the Gauntlet of the Queen. Bob, you are?
The Fist of the Queen.
And that joke never gets old to me.
It's not awkward.
Never gets old. Once a month.
Once a month. It's very frictionally positioning.
Not if you're doing it right. Move on.
Schmitty, the Keeper of the Labyrinth. Toby Sennett, the Baron of Britannia. And Todd Crapper, the best name in gaming. That's not a title, but his title is the Prophet of Probability.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight to listen and watch.
If you are free Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. the Queen's Time, come join us live on Twitch, where you can chat with other listeners in the ever-awesome Chat Room for Life and ask us the occasional question.
If you can't make it to the live show each week, check out this podcast. I mean, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also take a listen to some of the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, such as, Down with D&D, Bone Stone Obsidian, Pandas Talking Games, The Gnome Cast, Zhang Yu Hustle, She's a Super Geek, and Bonus Experience. You can also check out this station right here to watch the FM Gamers and the Bicons, the BXP Bicons. You can also check out our brother and sister sibling type podcast peoples, the Tabletop Bellhop, the Knights of the Night, and the always amazing Gaming MBS.
After you have set up your narrative and before you pick up those dice to roll them, leave us some feedback. You can reach us directly at mmp@misdirectedmark.com. Check out our Facebook group. Ding.
It's an awesome Facebook group.
Awesome.
Hit us up on Twitter. The show in the network is at Misdirected Mark. I'm at DNA Phil. This guy over here is at Robert M. Everson. And always the Light 101.
Yay!
Now part of the 40 Club.
Booyah.
I'm so old.
If you like what we do here and on the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, you can support our Patreon campaigns. MMP Down with D&D and Pandas Talking Games are at patreon.com/MMP. She's a Super Geek is at patreon.com/SassGeek. Zhang Yu Hustle is at patreon.com/Zhang Yu Hustle. And last but certainly not least, Bonus Experience is at patreon.com/Bonus Experience. Patrons of MMP, Down with D&D, and Pandas Talking Games get access to the after show, pre-production show notes, the occasional musical parody, Pandas Talking Games bonus outtakes, and other special releases.
Well, this has been a hot take-filled episode of Misdirected Mark Productions, which is the media arm of Encoded Designs. Mic drop.
We out!